All right, we are live talking some Fallout spoilers with my buddy Chris over here, friend of the channel. I was on his once; he's now over on mine. Handles a jackass of all trades. If you guys haven't checked him out, you definitely should. But we are talking Fallout spoilers today, which I'm super excited about. Chris, just right off the bat, thoughts on the show? I already know your little quick review, but let me hear what you thought of it.
Yeah, so this was one of those shows that when I saw the trailer and kind of the visceral reaction that I initially had was just like, oh, this looks everything else. A lot of visual candy, but no substance. I literally had no expectations watching it, and then I watched the first one, and I was like, okay, that was pretty interesting, and let's keep going. And then as the show went on, I thought it was they hit it out of the ballpark. It was
Yeah.
there's a few gripes I have here and there, but overall, my entire experience with it, I thought it was pleasantly surprised. I guess is pleasantly surprised and thought it was great. So, and I know that you were a little behind, so I guess you're gonna bless us with your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I know you said in your review that you're a massive fan of the third game.
Yeah,
I was obsessed with everything that pretty much came to like console. The first two were pretty much before my time and weren't
yeah,
really that graphically amazing.
yeah. There were turn-based games with not
Right.
near the breadth, the wealth of story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really kicked it off with the third game, got
Uh-huh.
obsessed with that.
Yeah.
Then right into New Vegas and 4. Like I legitimately remember being in college and like everybody in the frat house was surrounding my couch the night Fallout 4 came out. Like we were all going nuts, like staying up all night. Like these guys literally just watching me. Because let's be honest, like that's not the type of game you're letting other guys, take the controller for a bit. That's
No.
like your thing. So
Yeah, and it's not like it's not like Grand Theft Auto where you could let your buddy borrow it and then go
no,
steal a car, and then all of a sudden you have 5 stars and you have, like, the
I would have
National
been
Guard after you.
so
It's one of those
mad if
games
I
you have to really kinda take your time
yeah,
with and explore and find things along the way, so
yeah.
that's
So
funny. How long ago did 4 come out? I
I actually just looked it up. I think it was 2015 was
Okay.
4.
Alright. Yeah, I just
Um
honestly, man, like, it feels like it just came out yesterday, but almost 9 years ago. That's amazing.
yeah. So obsessed with the games. Had been let down repeatedly, like a lot of people, by video game adaptations.
Sure.
Funny enough, I actually think they started to get decent at the first Sonic the Hedgehog, which is crazy
Yeah,
to admit, but
yeah.
they, I think, started to kind of turn the tide there. But I remember, even though I love the games, watching the trailer for this one and not being excited at all, like you said. I was lucky enough to, I went to the first two episodes for a press screening in an IMAX theater, actually.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
was like, okay, if there's any way it's going to win me over, I might as well. Like everyone else is going to be watching it on a small TV. I'd be
Mhm.
stupid to pass up like this IMAX opportunity.
Yeah.
So I took my buddy, who's also a huge fan of the games, and we actually went to Sasquatch Sunset together the previous week as well. And I
Oh,
remember
really?
before we went to both of them, we were kind of like, our expectations were like, all right, I think Sasquatch Sunset's going to be pretty good. I have low expectations for Fallout. And then after we saw both of them, it was completely flipped. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, Sasquatch was down. Fallout was a huge, pleasant surprise. Walked
Right.
out of that second episode, and I was like, could not wait 2 more days for the rest of the season to come out. So I was super pumped about that. And I have a lot of thoughts about where I think it's going to go. I don't
Uh-huh.
know for sure, but right off the bat, do you, after watching the season, is there any theory, any Easter egg, something that you think you were latching onto while watching it?
That's a good one. I'd probably have to circle back after I hear your
Yeah.
thoughts on it to kind of really I haven't thought much about that. I mean, obviously they left it on a huge cliffhanger. Um and after like a big reveal with her dad and everything. Um but yeah, no, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts so I could kind of percolate on that a little bit. Um one question I
Well,
was gonna ask you a little bit later. We get to it later. We'll get to it later.
no, I come now. The anticipation's killing me. Now you got to hit
Oh,
me.
okay. Well, no, I was gonna ask really what if there was anything that bothered you or if there was any like criticisms because I know you saw my quick review and I didn't really, it's hard to balance those sometimes because it's like I have to get
Yeah.
this information out fast, but I also need to like give my critique along with what I liked about it and stuff. And I don't know if I couldn't really go into I didn't like about the show.
Yeah. Um, I'd say it's tough because a game like Fallout, there's so many tones they're balancing. I mean, like it's part sci-fi, it's part western. There are still really funny bits to it. And I think they did all of that well.
Yeah, I
I
thought
think
the
it
humor was actually really well balanced
was
in the
really,
show.
really well balanced.
Yeah.
And I think if anything, the critique I have to like step back and realize it might not be a critique because there are some things that I so badly wanted to see as a fan of the franchise
I
that
gotcha.
they
Yeah.
didn't give me. But then it's the same thing where it's like I would critique maybe like a Marvel movie because they're overloading with fan service. So I'm like, all right, maybe
Mhm.
they picked the correct balance. Like I know we got the skull at the end of the Death Claw, which I really wanted to see.
Yeah.
I actually thought the Death Claw was going to be in the cave in that second episode with
Okay.
Michael Rappaport and everything. Obviously,
Yeah.
that was just
That
the
was that was
Yao
funny
Guai
seeing
bear.
him there.
Oh my god, yeah, I was howling at my screening for that. But I'd
Yeah, they
say
had
it's
they
just
they they
little.
kinda snuck some, sorry to interrupt. They snuck
No,
some really, like, interesting cameos in there that I wasn't expecting at all. That was also a really nice addition to the show, I thought.
I think, I mean, you're definitely like me too, where it's like being such a film and TV buff, like I ruin cameos and surprises for people all the time because like
Uh-huh.
I'll know someone's voice, like
Yeah,
even before they're shown on screen. So like
yeah.
in one of those later episodes when they're listening to the radio, and I'm like, that's definitely Fred Armisen. And
Mhm.
then of course, like a scene later, he's in it and stuff.
Yeah. The radio
Um,
guy.
but I agree, they did throw in some nice little cameos for
Yeah,
that.
the Chris Parnell
Um
Cyclops was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I feel like I hadn't seen him in anything in a little bit. Like I know he's a very prominent. He's all with his voice acting and Rick and Morty
Yeah,
and everything now, but
yeah, Rick and Morty.
haven't seen him in a bit.
Yeah, no, that, I guess he looks older, but he looks like he looks like he's healthy, I guess.
Right, as healthy as a guy with one eye
When
can,
I
I guess.
Yeah.
Like, but I'd say if I'm thinking about any other thing that bothered me, it's just another fan service omission. Like I thought in in the episode when they're with Chris Parnell's group in Vault 4
Mhm.
and they kind of show her what the original Vault 4 dwellers were doing. They kind of showed her that grainy security footage of
Yeah.
kind of what was happening in there. So obviously we had already seen that like salamander I can't even remember what it's called, like a gulper
Oh,
previously.
the human fingers, his
Yeah, with
teeth.
the human fingers, yeah. And,
Yeah.
I don't know if it really like, I had to remind myself, I don't know if it actually makes total sense for lore, but I thought for sure in that lab, it was gonna be like one of the big super mutants that are in all the
Right.
games. Didn't end up being that, obviously. I'm wondering if they're even gonna go that route because at some point there does come a time where I feel like there might be it makes sense for the game, but in the show, there might be too many factions, too many subspecies of humans and everything where it
Uh-huh.
kind of gets too complicated. But I did think it was gonna be in that. Not like I was disappointed, but like I said, there's just a lot of fan service stuff that I wouldn't have minded. But in the
Sure.
long run, it's probably good that they did not delve into everything.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I think when I played the games, it's been a hot minute. I
Yeah.
have a Steam Deck, so I re-downloaded Fallout 3 just because I was like, I got the itch again to
Like
play it.
everybody.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Well, because on my TikTok, uh, like I had like 10 people even on YouTube, a lot of people reached out and they're like, which game should I play? I'm like, start with 3.
Yeah.
A lot of people though, I mean, they're screaming from the high heavens to start with New Vegas, and I'm like, well, New Vegas is amazing. I mean, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but 3 is really kind of sets the groundwork, I feel. Um, but the thing about the game that I would never really like the Brotherhood of Steel, I never really meshed with it all that much. I mean, I
I
did a
didn't
few
either,
things.
funny enough.
So I think the Maximus storyline was the one that I was the least interested in. that was kind of my biggest criticism. I didn't really care about his character all that much. I didn't like they show you they showed his flashbacks and stuff, and I was kind of just like, I don't know. He kind of came across like a I just didn't mesh with his character all that much. I wasn't super interested in what he was doing or going through. I mean, they still have time to change it, but I don't know if it was like the actor's choices or if it was his character itself, but he always just seemed kind of flat, one note, very monotonous. So it was like
I'm
when he get
so glad
excited,
you said that.
yeah, when he get excited about something, it was just all kind of the same tone. So I was never really engaging with him. When as like when Walton Goggins was on screen, it was like he was just chewing the scenery every
Yeah.
time they cut to him, whether it was his flashbacks or current day as the ghoul. So, and then I even thought, what's her name? The vault dweller.
I think it's Ella Purnell, Ella
Yeah,
Purcell,
what was her? I can't remember her character's name.
Lucy.
Lucy, yeah. And
Yeah.
Lucy's story was great. It was filled with a lot of uh very much the hero's journey where she just kind of
Yep.
starts out as this naive uh goody two shoes girl, and then by the end she's like this, hardened
Badass.
badass. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, how there's nowadays a lot of people like it's so girl bossy, but I was like, she wasn't girl
Yes.
bossy at all. She was very
They balanced
um
it so well.
yeah, they really balanced her character, and then when she found the twist of her dad and everything, it was awesome, man. That
Well,
storyline was great, but I
I
wasn't meshing with the Brotherhood of Steel stuff, I
I
guess.
love we'll come back to the Brotherhood because that's my hot take. I'll hit you
Okay.
with that in a second. But um something I realized, I think I saw a comment on Twitter or something like that, which I thought was pretty cool, is someone brought up that in Lucy's introduction at the beginning of the show, when she's kind of applying for that like marriage transfer
Uh-huh.
thing, she kind of goes through all the things that she's good at.
Right.
And I loved that it was basically like a meta introduction to the special skills you pick for yourself in the game of
Yeah.
like
Yeah, that was
this is
kinda
like
cool.
she has her like intelligence, like history and like athleticism and marksmanship and stuff like that. Like I loved how they kind of incorporated it to the point where it's like makes total sense to everybody that didn't touch the games at all in their entire lives, but like to people that played them, you're kind of like geeking out. Like, okay,
Yeah.
these guys are kind of they're leaving no stone unturned here, and they're actually really honoring the source material, so to
Yeah.
speak.
And that was I guess that was one of my other, I guess, minor gripes, just because you and I are very familiar with the lore and the games and stuff. I was curious. I want to watch it with my fiance because she has no idea. Like I think when I mentioned last time when we spoke, she watches like 5 shows,
Right.
so like just on repeat.
Yeah.
But I was curious if someone who never played the games, if it was very much a member berries for a lot of us, was it clear to people who weren't familiar? I think as the show went on, it got a little bit more clear, but there was things where I was like, "Man, if I didn't know what that was from the games, I'm not sure it would have translated." Or like, if I didn't know that
Yeah.
was from the game, I'm not sure I would have understood what was happening in the show. I don't know if you picked up on that at all or if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't know because I think since I knew the audience I wanted to converse with,
Sure.
I was mostly reaching out to my buddies that I knew were big fans of the games because I just knew if they hadn't seen it, I was like, it would be an easy sell if I was like, well, guess what? That Fallout show is actually good. So like
Mhm.
it would have been an easy, sales pitch there. I haven't talked to too many people that haven't played the games or weren't familiar with them.
Okay.
I don't think I was really watching it and realizing there were aspects that wouldn't translate. Um, like
Yeah,
I
because,
said,
like, they didn't explain the war for a very long time,
right.
obviously, it opens with the big atomic blast and stuff, but then you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, well, they've been fighting this war, like, what war is that? Why does the
Yeah.
Brotherhood exist?" Like, there were just little things that I guess I always kinda pick up on where I'm like, "If I
Yeah.
didn't know what was going on, would I understand this?" And they didn't explain what a Pip Boy was until, like, the 8th episode. They were
Yeah.
just on their wrist. And it's like you can make an assumption of kind of what it is, but you never really was a clear picture for a little while, I thought. So I don't know, maybe I was looking too in depth at certain aspects, but I was
Yeah.
also like, I don't know if I wasn't, really into these games, if I would have followed along with with some of the things that were happening.
What do you think, just face value, when it comes to the writing and the acting and kind of just fan service mixes in there as well? What do you
Sure.
think was the strongest storyline involved?
I'd have to go with Walton Goggins' whole
Yeah,
storyline, especially the flashbacks,
loved
because
the flashbacks.
I think it really provided a whole lot of nuance to his character, and you're kind of interested to know the in between, right? Like how
Yeah,
he went from this sort of optimistic, like uh well, I guess he was an actor, yeah,
yeah,
that had kind of these prominent roles, a pretty well-known face. He seemed like he was like a strong patriot, sort of, proud of his
right.
country sort of
Yes,
guy. And then he becomes just this hardened, jaded bounty hunter that kind of does whatever he needs to survive. And it's not like in the prettiest ways possible, he's
yeah,
he's kind of a scumbag. So
yeah,
it's like, how does he go from point A to point B? And it kind of, I mean, they kind of alluded to it, but I'm definitely very interested in to know a lot of the in between there. How he's been alive for 200 years and so on and so forth.
yeah. I
How
loved the
about you?
flashback. I definitely think so. I'd say if I have my film school hat on, I would
Mhm.
say the Walton Goggins one, but I would
Sure.
be lying if I said I didn't get unbelievable amounts of enjoyment out of the little brother in the vault trying to figure out what's
Yeah,
going on.
that's a
Um,
good point. He had a very good sub story going on there.
I I'm assuming just because everyone watched this back in the day, especially if they love movies and TV so much. Were you on the Lost train back in the
Oh, of
day?
course, of course.
Yeah. So I was talking to one of my buddies who we kind of watched it together when we were growing up. And it was before streaming services were even really a thing or had much of a catalog. So we would
Sure.
be watching it on like these Asian websites that hosted all of Lost. And
I
it was like
remember those.
you couldn't get the subtitles off of them. So we're just like watching, and it's like it's grainy to the point that if you full screened it, you wouldn't even be able to see anything, right? So
Right,
we're
right,
like
yeah,
watching it on like this, it just like hinging on like hanging on every scene and every
uh
word when it was really cooking with gas. Obviously later it kind of petered out and got too big for its britches. But like
yeah,
I was telling him, because he hasn't seen it yet, but he's a big Fallout fan in general. Um, that feeling I got of him getting closer to figuring out this mystery and the breadcrumbs being dropped along the way was like the closest I've got to that feeling of like peak Lost since it was on the air.
uh-huh,
Like the John Locke storylines of like finding the vault and being able to open it up and like looking
sure.
down the hatch and stuff. That was like a one-to-one, like I'm like rubbing my hands together the second the episode's cut to black. I'm like, next episode, like
Yeah,
I need to figure out what's going on there. So it's like I said, best acted, best written. That's the Walton Goggins storyline. But
yeah,
for it comes to like entertainment and like me hinging on these cliffhangers, it has to be Norm's story in the vault.
okay. Yeah, that's interesting. He definitely had one of the more intriguing storylines for sure, and I think what I liked about it is that he's such an odd looking character.
Yes.
So just I mean, he must be like 5'3" too, like a
I
really
l- I
small
looked
guy.
I looked it up. He's 4'11".
Is he really? Okay.
4'11", yeah,
That that
short
actually
king.
that actually doesn't surprise me. He looked like a really short dude.
Yeah. I
But
mean, and they
he
they paired him with the guy that was pretty tall too.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, his
Yeah.
sister obviously was a lot taller, and then when I saw
Yeah.
her, standing next to some other people, I was like, Clearly she's not like a super tall girl." So,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I think a lot of that, and then plus, his big reveal, at the end of the show, like, he figured out what was going on before anybody else did. So, yeah, that's actually a pretty good subplot that they had going there that I didn't really consider that, but yeah, you're right. I
No,
just
I
I
loved that,
think I
yeah.
think the problem with him is that they didn't develop his character a whole lot.
Right.
He's kind of only in scenes where he's he knows something's going on,
He's just, like,
and
sleuthing around and
yeah,
stuff.
and he's just
Yeah.
trying to figure out what the big lie is, I guess you could say.
It kinda reminded me a little bit of obviously, the guy I'm about to mention, I think, had more character development up to that point, and there was more seasons, but did you ever watch The Expanse?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
So I fell off of it
I
But
heard so I didn't finish the last season, and I heard it was garbage, so I didn't.
yeah,
I
I have a
never.
buddy that I think would agree with you. I don't
Yeah,
think he liked it very much, but um, I'm obsessed with those kind of like slow unfurling sci-fi mystery plots. Like I
yeah,
loved the Thomas Jane stuff in The
yeah. The
Expanse. I
Thomas
thought
Jane
that
stuff
was
was awesome.
excellent. That was excellent. And then when he, got iced, I pretty much kind of
I
fell off a
know.
little bit. Um, but all right, I will hit you with my hot take. Um, which
Let's
I've
hear it.
seen, I think, one or two other people talking about it. I have no idea if it's going to end up being a thing. It's one of those things where I don't think it's going to happen, but I want to be on the right side of history saying that I called it if it does
Sure,
happen.
sure. So you can
Is
just rub it in everybody's face.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
got
did
you.
you just to set myself up here, did you play a lot of 4 as well?
So 4, I didn't invest. I like my daughter was really, really young, so it
Yeah.
was one of those games that I'd play late at night for 30-minute periods. So I didn't invest a ton of time in it. But I also remember not falling in love with it right away like I did 3. Because remember, like, 3 with the opening sequence and Liam Neeson's voice coming through and stuff
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. It was just like I had this real engaging feeling right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I never I think I probably put like 20, 30 hours or something into
So
the
did you beat the main story or no?
of 4, no, I did not.
Okay. Do you
I
remember
played
this?
all of New Vegas though, so
Do you remember about the synths?
yes, yeah.
I think Maximus might be a synth. That's
Okay.
my take. And like I've seen a couple people say this, and you mentioned it as well. He's got a little bit of like wooden acting, kind of
Yeah.
flat, like you said. It would play into that. I might be giving it too much credit if that was what was going to happen. But
Yeah,
my feeling about it is like he kind of had some robotic and mechanical body language and facial expressions. He was
yeah,
the only one other than Walton Goggins that we kind of saw like a little bits of his past. Like he was a
yeah,
little kid. He didn't look like he does now. It was,
yeah,
far away in what was it, like Shady Sands.
yeah,
I just think if there's anyone that's intrigued by this whole AI concept of humans commingling with robots, and if you can't tell if it's a human or a robot, does it matter in the end game anyway?
sure.
Obviously, it's the guy that helps develop Westworld, Jonathan
Mhm.
Nolan. So my thinking is, I just think that there's more eggs in the basket of that it could happen than not for me with how this guy was acting, who developed the show, and what they've done in the past. I don't know if you think that's completely off base or
No,
if you
I
think it's a
You're a
possibility.
pretty strong theory. I haven't thought of it or heard that, but, yeah, no, I think I mean, that's par for the course, right? That was kind
Yeah,
of all of Westworld's,
their
MO.
whole their whole MO, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's still, it's so funny to me that Jonathan Nolan is Christopher Nolan's brother, because
Dude, it's
yeah.
crazy.
Well, they look somewhat similar, but he's I think he was born in England, but he was raised in America, is that right?
I think that's right, but you're also right that, like, they kinda look similar, but it's so funny looking at them next to each other because it's very
Yeah,
clearly one Americanized one and then
and one
one, like,
Very British
British.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean,
Um,
and Christopher Nolan's married to a British gal too, so,
yeah.
um, but I think that's what it is. I think Christopher's a little bit older than him, and he was born in England, but Jonathan was born in England, but raised in America. I could be way off, but I think
No,
that
I
was the
think
story I
I
read.
think one went to school in one country and one went to school in the other or something like
Yeah,
that.
okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. But yeah,
Um,
no, and he's, yeah, he does seem like he has that sort of obsession with
he
the,
has that itch, man.
yeah, with the AI
Like,
stuff.
he did I don't know if he was attached to it at all. His wife did that movie with, Hugh Jackman and Candy Newton,
Oh,
which I feel like I was the only one on the planet that actually thought it was pretty decent, but it
yeah.
again tackled
Well,
these themes of, you know, these weird alternate realities and
yeah,
sci-fi and AI and stuff. And it's like this couple is obsessed with this concept. So
yeah,
I feel like it would be irresponsible to not assume that they're going to play around with this world
right.
with that angle where that comes into play. Like they've shown for like all their past 3 projects or something that they kind of
Yeah.
they kind of dig that. So,
Yeah, you're right. Was that the one with Rebecca Ferguson?
Yes, who I
Okay, I
love.
can't remember I watched it during, like, right when COVID kicked off.
It's called, like, Remembrance or something like
Yeah, and
that.
I remember it had a really cool concept, but nothing really materialized from it. I
It
remember just
actually
watching it and going,
had
"Okay,
it
I'll
actually
forget
had,
about that
like,
movie in 5 seconds."
it had, like, an awesome, like, underwater, like, BioShock, like, underwater New Orleans type of
Yeah, yeah,
70s
yeah.
vibe to it too. I mean, the production design was great. They're great at that, but yeah, it went off the rails a little bit.
It did, yeah. I just honestly, it was like, I didn't watch that movie that long ago, but I don't remember much about it, but I do remember watching because it came out on, like, HBO Max or Max, whatever it's called now.
I'm
Um,
already cracking up. I have a buddy, I told him my theory earlier today. He thinks I'm way off on the,
I see his chat came up.
Maximus being the synth. Hey, Jeff, we'll see. All right, buddy. Give it a couple years when season 2 comes out. You'll be I have this recorded now, so we'll
I hope
see.
it doesn't take a couple years, man. I
I
hope.
know. I'm worried. I don't know how long it's gonna take.
So how do you feel about them releasing all the episodes at once? I've heard mixed things from people. I think some people are really liking that they got to stream it over the weekend, but others are like, I don't know, I don't really like this whole binge at once sort of deal. Like
Well,
it,
I
it, it,
think
it gives you water cooler talk, but it's only for
yeah.
like a week. And then you're on to something else.
I think the whole instant gratification and like social media stuff has affected movies and TV and like conversation wise, at least in such a negative fashion where
I
like
agree.
I feel like Dune Part 2 came out like a month ago or a month and a half ago, right? And it's
Yeah.
like that was like the first 5-star I gave a movie in like a long time. And
Yeah.
then like I remember back in the day when that would happen, that was a huge deal. And then it's just like I feel like there was 2 weeks of conversation over like this landmark unbelievable movie. And then it's like, okay, what's next? Like what's
Yeah.
coming out of the next thing? So obviously a show like this where it's released like 8 episodes like that, you can binge through it in a weekend, whatever. Um Obviously me craving to find out what happened was happy.
Right.
That part of me was happy. But I do think because kind of going back to that lost feeling I said I had, that hit way harder with the cliffhangers and everything when that was week to week. Like
Yeah.
you're like, what the hell is John Locke doing now in that hatch with
Yeah.
the computer? And I feel like for me, since I loved the Norm storyline the most, I would have really enjoyed it a lot more week to week.
I think so too. Because I go into my office every day, and each what is it, Thursday, we talk about the new episode of Shogun. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like that show's been going on for a little over 2 months now, and every week I'm still talking about it with like all my coworkers. But we talked about, and then probably won't mention it again until the show comes out 5 years from now or whenever,
Right.
however long it takes them to make it.
Yeah, no, it's such a bummer in that regard. Like
Yeah. I mean,
it
it
goes back and
looked
forth.
gorgeous.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%. It is a bummer though. Like you can tell even Amazon specifically kind of goes back and forth with what they want to decide. Like if you remember, I think season 1 of The Boys, they like dropped all at once. Then season 2 came around and they did it week to week. And like
No,
people like there was like
I
big
think season 1 dropped 3 episodes at once, and
was
then
it?
yeah, then it was week to week,
I just remember they
which
changed up their strategy
uh
between the first 2 years, and, like, it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of scenario, like, people were gonna be outraged that it doesn't drop all at once, and then the other group's gonna freak out when you drop it week to week, so,
that's true, yeah.
but
Well, and
I
speaking of outrage, it's so funny, man, now that you and me, like, things grow steady, but they're growing, and it's like each time I put a review out, especially if it's something like Fallout, it's like, "Hey, I love this series," and then people will be like, "Well, you're stupid because it basically threw out all the lore of Fallout," and I'm like, "I don't know about that, man."
didn't watch the same show.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, they seem to have included a lot. They told an original story, wasn't, part of any of the games. I don't know if that's what he was referring to. So, usually with people like that, I'm just like, "Whatever."
Yeah.
But have you had any feedback on, I guess you haven't reviewed it yet, huh?
I
This is your
haven't put
review?
Yeah, I haven't put anything out just because I had, like, a bunch of stuff dropping last week, and, when I got to see the first 2, and then that last weekend was, like, my fiance's family was in town. We had our bridal shower and everything. So I was like, I'm not, the house was packed. So it's like, I would have been filming a review with like her mom and dad
Yeah, a
probably like laying
bunch of
right
noise in the
there,
background. Yeah,
or just like going to sleep. Like in, every room had a bed in it and stuff. So I didn't really get a chance to like sit down and give formal thoughts on it.
sure.
But so yeah, in that regard, I've been lucky to avoid 100% of the grief because I haven't even put anything out for someone to comment on. But
Yeah.
that actually, you kind of touched on something that brings me to a good next question is what are your thoughts on, do you think it was the right move to do a completely fresh story and not try to adapt any storylines from the actual games?
Yeah, actually, that was I think what I appreciated probably the most about the show was that it didn't try to take what's already there, and it was done masterfully, and you could invest, hundreds of hours into those storylines.
Yeah.
So I thought taking a lot of, the quote unquote fan service, but it wasn't like, how in Ghostbusters they gave you the new Ghostbusters they gave you fan service, but it was like, why?
Yeah.
When they ended up in the library in that movie, this is a whole different tangent, but it'll make sense in a minute. It's like
Yeah.
they gave you fan service just because they know people that are going to go see this movie are all in their 40s and 50s and grew up with the Ghostbusters. And if those people don't get the fan service, they're going to sit there and bitch about it online. Uh, what I liked about the show is that they gave fan service to the people that are big fans of the games, but they were also able to tell their own new story that's more like a companion piece to everything else that's already out there that you can consume and don't have to try to compare. So like with video games, it's like some people are like, well, in my review, I said video game adaptations are a tricky business. And they're like, it's not tricky. You can just take the already awesome story and put it there. I'm like, yeah, but
Right.
if you do it wrong or you don't do it well, it's like
There'll
all
be
it's gonna
hell to
do is
pay.
yeah, well, you're gonna
Yeah.
piss the fans off, and then you also run the risk of just making a terrible.
Yeah. Attracting no audience at all, even the
Exactly, and
newcomers.
it's like
Yeah.
so many video game adaptations, excuse me, have run into this issue, and that's why when you go back to like the best video game adaptation movies, it's like yeah, it's that's still pretty rough, man. It's like you got the Super
Yeah.
Mario Brothers movie, the Sonic movies. I mean, Mortal Kombat from the 90s, maybe because nostalgia, but I mean, objectively, that's not a great movie.
Right.
Um, and the new Mortal Kombat was like had like a great 30 minutes, but I
Yeah.
also was just like I barely remember that movie.
Like,
What
didn't
all
even have
happened?
it didn't even have the tournament in it.
Yeah, I know. There was no tournament. There was a made up character who's just not. He didn't know. I mean, he
He
wasn't a
wasn't
good
compelling
actor.
at all.
I was trying to find a nice way to say it, but no, he wasn't. He
Yeah.
wasn't a good actor at all. Um,
Um, I can't believe you just went on a fan service rant and didn't hit me with the line that you hit me with last time we talked that I told you I loved about Jurassic Park Dominion,
ah,
Jurassic World Dominion. Because I'm telling you, that could apply to so many different things.
it's true.
Because the Ghostbusters thing is the same. Like you said, what did you say? It was like having a bunch of old friends for dinner, but the dinner was like a giant plate of diarrhea or
Yep.
something.
The giant bowl of diarrhea. Yeah. Yeah. It's like having old friends, you're there, you're comfortable with everybody, and then boom, they hit you with the worst meal of your life.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it was the right move to do their own original story with it too, because
Uh-huh.
it's kind of, if anything, just a compliment to the world they're playing in itself. Like it's so vast. I mean, like they did a good job just at the inception of this franchise even being made that like you don't want to touch a certain storyline, that's fine. There's about a million other vaults that
Right.
you could just make something up that fits in the guidelines of this planet and it'll play. So,
That's true. That's true. And like and what I thought was pretty cool was the ghoul angle that they took too. Like I remember in the games, not real. I mean, a lot, obviously those are a lot of characters that you have to fight against, but it was cool like having a full story fleshed out for Walton Goggins' character to kind of get.
yeah.
So like that's why I say it's pretty. When I was talking to a buddy of mine who big Fallout fan, but he's kind of jaded in today's movie television world, and I told him to check it out. Um, but I told him it's just it's a nice companion piece to the games. It's not you can there's the member berries there for all of us that have played those games for years, and there's also like some fresh new content that you can sit back and enjoy.
Well, it's funny because I never watched the Halo series, but
I tried.
I've
I
heard that
tried.
that's a great example of them butchering
Yeah.
a very beloved video game series, and not even coming to the table ready to follow the rules in the sense that they always have Master Chief taking his helmet off, which is like the
Yeah.
number one no.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
I mean,
Judge Dredd
like
taking his mask his helmet off.
if they found an actor in Pedro Pascal, granted, half the time it's just his voice, but to play the Mandalorian without taking his helmet off for
Yeah.
like 95% of the time, they could find someone that was less low, like more low profile than him that would have been willing to keep a
Yeah.
helmet on as well. But
Yeah.
I feel like if you're already breaking the first rule when you're trying to adapt something like that, it's usually not, the fans aren't going to be very kind to you going forward.
No, no, especially when you have, like I think one of the things that bothers me a lot nowadays is that they blame the fans for so many things, and I'm like, man,
Hmm.
you guys are deliberately doing things just to piss them off. So
Yeah.
it's like you can't blame the fans; they're the ones that are going to give you the money. So if you're gonna
Yeah.
sit there and blame them for the faults, it's like, well, maybe you guys should take a little bit of accountability for clearly doing something you knew was going to piss them off.
I mean,
Uh,
I feel like you could Master Chief has to be like in the top 10 most recognizable video game
yeah,
characters ever, right? So it's like
yeah,
anyone that's never even picked up a controller before probably knows that the helmet stays on.
stays on. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kinda like Batman doesn't kill and Master Chief's helmet never comes off.
Well, not if you talk to Zack Snyder about it, but that's a
I
different
know.
story.
Yeah, I know, did you listen to him on Joe Rogan talking about that?
I saw the clips where he said it's boring if he doesn't
Yeah, I was like,
kill and
"What?"
like grow by killing and stuff. I was
Yeah,
like, that's,
I was
not
like,
really
"That's
the
the
way I look
complete
at it.
antithesis of." I mean, for me, I'm like, I think that's just what makes him more interesting is he has all the reason to kill. He's dealing
Yeah.
with these freaking psychopaths, and he
And
doesn't.
doesn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, yeah.
but
You got to follow the rules with some of that kind of stuff.
sure, sure.
Um, but yeah, no, I think this is gonna be like my second Marvel comparison in the last half hour, but like, um, and I almost feel like I'm picking and choosing, which isn't really the best practice to do, but it's almost like you kind of have that similar multiverse type of appeal in the sense that you're playing in this world and you know that like if they wanted to, they could come up with a brand new story and like vault
Yeah,
81 that in Montana or something. Like it doesn't
yeah.
matter.
Yeah, and
Um,
you could even do because I mean, New Vegas was kind of just a spinoff. It wasn't a direct sequel to 3,
right.
so it's like you could even do I mean, I hope it doesn't Walking Dead itself to where there's like
Oh,
90 different
oh my
iterations
God.
of the show
Yeah.
and there was only like 3 or 4 good seasons.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if you kept up with that show or not, but like every time I look down, there's a new Walking Dead show, and I was like, "Dude, I stopped watching like 10 years ago." It's crazy
I
that they're still coming out with stuff.
I went at it hard at the beginning because
Me
I feel
too.
like there
Same.
wasn't really like great zombie stuff for a little bit. And
Yeah.
then my buddies were the same way. And I was like, just watch the pilot because like Frank Darabont directing it
Yeah,
and
and then once he
everything.
bounced, the show's quality kinda went down as far as I was concerned.
I agree. I don't know. I honestly heard I feel like he got fired or something, which I think was a huge mistake. I don't even know
Yeah, I
what
know
happened there, but
there was a creative differences thing,
yeah.
but I mean,
I only
it's
need to
usually
see the first episode to know that the creative whatever juices he had flowing was what I really wanted. They should have just kept
right.
with that. Um but yeah, I didn't keep up with it. I remember I watched it pretty hard, then I fell off because it was just too much and it was kind of getting lame after like the prison season or whatever. And then
Yeah.
um I watched a ton of it again after like Jeffrey Dean Morgan showed up because
Uh-huh.
everyone was
Yeah,
kind of
as
obsessed
Negan.
with that. Yeah.
Yep.
Followed it a little bit, got stupid again, then haven't tried to watch it again since.
Yeah, same here. I know I watched I think it was when right before Negan came in, they started the other Walking what was it, Fear the Walking Dead, the LA one?
Yeah, I haven't seen a second of that.
So I watched a few of those episodes, but I was like, it's more or less the same thing. I mean, I
Yeah,
think the problem with that show is that, well, now obviously it's like there's more content of Walking Dead than there is Marvel stuff.
yeah,
But the problem I had is that like some of the characters would make like the dumbest decisions ever. You're like, that would never, I mean, you and me watch a ton of stuff. And for
Yeah.
me to sit back and go, that would never happen. It's like, look, I have to suspend my disbelief a lot. And
Yeah.
when that show was getting to the point where I was like, all these people are idiots, and I don't care if they live or die anymore. I was like, I'm out. I can't do this. So when I watched the Fear of the Walking Dead show, I kind of felt that way right off the bat. So I was just like, there's no point of even watching this. But so that's my concern with the show, is that it gets too popular, it gets too big for its britches, and it spins off way too many shows. Like another good example was Arrow. So like
Mhm.
the first season or two of Arrow was great. And then they started spinning off all those Arrowverse shows, and they just got way too big for their britches, and none of them ended. Like they're all done now, and no one cares.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. I haven't seen a second of that. I don't think
The
I've
first
seen
2
any
seasons of
of
Arrow
those.
are legit, but, like,
I've heard that. Yeah.
yeah, and you and me are probably you're probably in the same boat as me, where it's like, "Well, why would I start watching it if only 2 seasons are good?"
Yeah.
If I don't wanna finish the rest of the show.
I mean, it was kind of like that pattern everything DC found themselves in
Mhm.
general, where it's like, why am I going to go see like the Flash, or why am I going to go see Aquaman if I know everything's getting jumbled up and shuffled and
Yeah.
this isn't leading to anything anyway? Like, it's just like it doesn't. There's no reason for me to get invested.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially the last Aquaman. I was like, nothing in this movie matters, so we're just watching an adult cartoon essentially, because there's so much CGI in that.
So another thing that has kind of been popping up with the ending of this season. And I don't know how much you know about this because this kind of affects later on what happens in the fourth game.
Okay.
Um, there is, and maybe you've heard about this already because it's kind of all over Twitter. There is a famous big ship that the Brotherhood of Steel uses in
Uh-huh.
the fourth game.
Okay.
Can't even remember what it's called. Just know it starts with a P. And people have said that they can kind of zoom in on certain frames in the show, and the show's through little details, it's making it seem like that's the very same ship that's used in the fourth game is appearing in
So
the
when you say
show,
ship,
right?
is it like a boat ship or like
No,
a
the huge
okay.
airship that you saw all of them like kind of dropping down
Yeah,
all
no,
over.
I haven't seen this theory. I'm not familiar with it either, so
So there is, or I guess they kind of went on record saying that like the show isn't canon to the games, but the games are canon to the show.
okay,
So,
interesting.
um, people are kind of confused because based on the years that they say this show is taking place, and then seeing that ship kind of conflicts against the game's ending because depending on who you side with in the fourth game, and sorry, I'm spoiling it here.
No, it's
Yeah, I know
okay. It's okay.
you had 9
I'm gonna,
years, you know? You
you know,
had 9 years.
yeah, I had 9 years, and, like, my thing to do at night, just because 'cause I'm always working and stuff, is, like, I just get my Steam Deck, my
Yeah.
fiancée will watch her How I Met Your Mother for the 50th time, and
Yeah.
I'll play, so I got Fallout 3, New Vegas, and 4, and I'm gonna go right in that
You're all
order.
set, yeah.
Yeah, because
But
I need to finish 4.
so basically, towards the end, depending on who you side with, and the decisions you make, a massive part of the end of the game is destroying this exact airship and essentially kind of like ending the Brotherhood of Steel
Okay,
almost. I don't even remember if I did that in mine, based on kind of who I sided with, because I decided to like destroy a different faction, and I think
okay,
that was like the one big decision I had to make. But basically, people are saying that if you're believing the showrunners, and that would mean that what they're kind of doing in the show is they're kind of like accepting one of the possible endings of 4 and rolling with it.
right,
Unless this was just an oversight and a mistake, which like it could be. I mean, there's so many names for ships and like they kind of maybe they just slapped something on there. I would think that they didn't. But um so it's almost like it is retconning
uh-huh,
2 possible endings that were for the game and then just marching forward with the one that they wanted to march forward with.
Right.
No idea. I mean, who knows? I'm sure it'll come into play somehow in the future, but basically, there's some like timeline arguments back and forth right now about because like we talked about, it probably was a good practice to stay as far away from the actual timeline of what happens in the games as possible, is not to upset anybody or mess anything up. But
Right.
this is direct detail that kind of seems like it actually is ensnaring itself a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So I don't even know what I believe. um, I haven't even seen any pictures for myself if it actually even says the name on the side of the ship. But leave it to like nerds who love a franchise like
Of
myself
course,
to like
man.
become invested in something like that. But
Yes.
like, no idea what's gonna happen there.
No, me neither. I'm interested to see how the stuff with her dad kind of um unfolds, I guess, like all the
Yeah,
aftermath and everything, because that they really set that up. Because I right as it ended, I was like, man, I would love to keep going with this show right now
yeah,
because it
yeah.
like it really hit its stride in the last few episodes too. So
It's funny that I mean, it could obviously just be a total coincidence, but it's funny that like you said it as well, and like I never really had any motivation or desire to do anything with the Brotherhood of Steel in the games,
yeah, no,
and you didn't either, which is kind of
no,
funny.
I always thought the armor like kind of weighed you down,
Yeah.
prevented me from exploring a little bit
I
more. It
honestly
was
feel
so
like
slow.
there were too many rules for me to keep it, like,
Rules and
maintained, you
yeah,
know?
there was rules and then just the general mechanics of having I mean, I've heard, like, if you build with the suit of armor, obviously it gets better, but I remember every time I'd be
Yeah,
in there, I was like, "Dude, this just, like, killed the whole momentum of the game."
yeah. I remember it was like a rush to get enough to upgrade it so that I had, like, the jetpack so I could actually
Uh-huh.
move around, but other
Yeah.
than that, I'm like a sitting duck.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and you died really easy in the armor when you first put it on too. I remember that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
so they're making a BioShock show, aren't they?
I
I
can't
remember
remember if it's a
hearing that.
show or a movie, but
Okay.
and
It's
so
Netflix, right?
I think so, which
Yeah.
take that as you will.
Yeah. Well, I hope they
I
do what Amazon just did because that was freaking great.
I go back and forth on honestly, like this is kind of my field day personally because I've always said like my two favorite franchises are BioShock and Fallout. I'm
Okay.
like a horror weirdo too, so like I love Dead Space and Resident Evil,
Oh, I
but
love those games. I love
going
those
back and
games.
forth like toe to toe, like Fallout, BioShock, and I really think
The first
it's
BioShock is dude,
oh
that's
my,
one of the
it's
best
like
video game experiences of my life.
chef's kiss masterpiece.
Yeah.
First BioShock.
Yeah.
I
The
still,
second one
that's
was the
one of
same
those.
thing, but yeah.
That's one of those games where I kind of end up either giving into the desire more often than not, but like that is one of those games where I kind of dabble with like once a year at this point, just
Okay.
because
I
I'm
need to go
obsessed
back and
with that.
revisit it. I've played it a couple times all the way through, and it's just, uh, yeah, there's nothing like playing
They
that game for the first time.
they polished it up really well for like the next gen too, so
Yeah, yeah.
it's fantastic playing that again. But
Well,
I
that's funny you
think
said. Oh, go ahead.
well, no, I just think there's so many good comparisons between that franchise and Fallout, where it's like
100%.
these crazy, realized, almost kind of like cyberpunk light worlds.
Yeah.
And it's
Steampunk
just,
or
yeah,
steampunk.
yeah, yeah. And it's just one of
Yeah.
those things where it's like, I had the debate with myself earlier that I was like, I can't decide what's a more recognizable and realized setting, the Fallout setting or the BioShock setting, because
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into both. They're so detail oriented. I mean, like obviously it's simple on paper, but there's so much more with BioShock. Like it's an underground, underwater city, like which
Uh-huh.
is like
Yeah.
that's obsessed with like perfection and perfecting oneself. That obviously takes a terrible turn. But then like you have Fallout, which the aesthetic is so unique where it's like it's a sci-fi, it's a western, it's got like 30s prohibition era aesthetic, but it's in the future, but then the bombs
Yeah.
go off, so for like 200 years no one's advancing anything, so
Yeah,
everything's
it's
retro
stuck in
and
the
beat up.
1950s essentially, yeah.
It's crazy and it's like so intricate. So like I basically no idea who's helming it or anything like that, but this show rocking gives me way more hope that BioShock isn't dead on arrival.
Yeah, and that's funny you mentioned that because, my some of my favorite video game franchises. The Witcher's like way up there on
Oh my
mine.
god.
I think The Witcher 3 is like definitely like top 3 game.
Yeah,
So
it's
like when
insane.
the series came out, it's like, man, you guys had the perfect casting with Henry Cavill,
Yeah.
and you just screwed it up so bad. I mean, the first, I've gone back and I've watched the first season a couple times, and the second season, and then the third season, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. But the first season had some potential. It was kind of loosely based on the books. I've read the books too.
Mhm.
But it never materialized into anything. So that's why it's so refreshing to see something like Fallout. And that's why I hope Netflix can kind of like take a cue from what Amazon was able to do, and listen to how people are reacting to it. It's like they didn't have to completely change the storylines just to appease some sort of producer on it. Like they just were like, hey, what works great with these games? What do people love about them? Let's take that and make our own show.
So, I'm gonna take you on a tangent for a second.
Go for it.
Completely unrelated, because you brought up The Witcher, and this is a battle I've been waging internally for a little bit, but in with all the projects he's been in, all the box office, all the uncertainty and everything, is Henry Cavill a movie star?
I don't
Because I
know.
think because I think no.
Yeah, I'd probably say no too. I
Because time and
honestly,
time
I have a
again.
whole I have a whole different theory on movie stars these days. I feel like there's
Mhm,
only really 2 left.
that's fair. Or should
Yeah,
I say is like a bankable star
a
more than a
bankable no,
movie
he's
star?
definitely not a bankable star.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's like what's so weird is I see debates about him all the time, and I just think that, like, time and time again, people are outcrying on Twitter for him to get these big roles, and then he'll get, like, a big role, and then, like, no one shows up to the theater.
yeah,
So
and
it's like.
unfortunately, I think it's just the quality that he's putting out. Like, I saw,
Yeah,
Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and
yeah,
it was great. It was a lot of fun, but it's an R-rated movie about, like, a militia that or, underground team that kills Nazis, so I don't know if it's
yeah,
gonna do well or not.
yeah.
And then the
I hadn't
trailers
seen
were kinda weird, I don't know how many people are really gonna care about it. And then I know Alan Ritchson's had a pretty, interesting week too, so
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if he cast a shadow on that movie or not.
Yeah, people were saying I didn't really notice it myself, but people were saying for all the promotional material, he's suspiciously not involved anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I because it is a bummer thinking about it though, because I like Guy Ritchie. I think he puts out a lot of really fun stuff.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of been putting out safe stuff over the past like decade. I didn't see his movie The Covenant. I've heard that was
Oh,
good though.
dude. So I actually disagree with you there. I think he's
Okay.
been putting out a lot better content since
Oh, okay.
Aladdin. I feel like he was just like, "Man,
God,
fuck
yeah,
this." Like, I
Aladdin.
wanna I wanna go back because I love The Gentleman, the movie, and I like the show. Like I know you thought it was pretty
I
okay,
I I dug the
nothing great.
show. I liked it
Yeah?
more than I definitely have more positives than negatives to say about it.
Sure. Sure, and I understand why. Like, I know you said that after he stopped directing it, it was kinda like people were brought in to imitate Guy Ritchie.
Yeah.
And, when I watched it, I was like, "Yeah, I totally see that." Like, Guy Ritchie has a certain look and feel with his movies. Um, but I thought, like, his last 3 or 4 movies were really solid, and this one too, I was like, "It's not his best, but it's a solid movie." It's a fun movie,
Yeah.
and it has all the great camera work, all the
Mhm.
fun editing that he likes to impose in all his movies. So it definitely feels like a Guy Ritchie film. The Covenant does not. It does not.
Right.
It's like a
It
very
doesn't look like one
restrained
either.
version of Guy Ritchie.
Yeah.
So, but
But you
yeah,
like that one.
I loved it. It was one of my,
Yeah.
if I had like a 15 favorite movies from last year, it'd definitely be on that list.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I mean, I'm a massive Gyllenhaal guy in general, like pretty much everyone else, but,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
gonna have to watch that. Hold on, I missed a couple, got my buddy Jacob in here. "Hey, Sully, in a theater about to watch Abigail. So my only question is your fave Fallout video game. Mine's Fallout 4, but I played Vegas more growing up. Have a great stream." Thanks for popping in, Jacob. Um, I don't know. I mean,
He's
like my I spent the most time with 4, I'll just say that.
Oh, really?
So,
Okay.
yeah, I spent the most time with 4 just because I mean, college, like, a lot
Yeah,
of
that makes sense.
downtime living on my own kinda stuff, so, I'll say 4 just because it was the most I invested my time into it, like, played all the
Sure.
D
And that was
DLC.
when you're I guess 3 probably came out when you were pretty young, right? Like, I'm a little bit older.
It was a little bit before my time, I played it kind of on the tail end
Yeah.
of before new iterations
I
came
was
out.
in my early 20s when 3 came out, so that was, like,
Yeah,
heyday, I'm gonna
yeah.
invest
Binge the
every
hell
time
out
I'm
of
not
this.
working nights at Sharper Image playing this game. You
Did
know?
you work there?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I
Back
do
before
they
back
even
before it closed down.
I was gonna say, do they even exist anymore?
No, they don't exist, but their line still does. So I think they sell stuff at like Target. Like you'll go,
Yeah.
how like FAO Schwartz has like a little line now.
Yeah,
They close
yeah,
all the stores. So I think Sharper Image has the same thing, or at least they did. I don't know anymore. But back
yeah.
when I worked there, it was like, it was popping, man.
I believe it.
Yeah. Selling our $5,000 massage chairs.
Oh, my buddy Movie Dean's in here. What's up, Dean? Can't stay. Just stopping by to hit the like button and ask what was the last shot of the season, Seattle or just another spot in California. Anyways, you rock. Well, you rock too, Dean. Um, no, that was Vegas, baby.
It
That
was
was New
Vegas, yeah.
Vegas. Which, if you haven't played the games, that's a very important location, and there's an entire game that takes place there. I would look it up unless you really want to go in fresh and not spoil anything for yourself. I don't know how much they're going to be faithful to that game, but a lot of cool stuff happens with that setting. So I am definitely fired up about that. Thanks for stopping by, Dean. Appreciate it. Um, but yeah, no, I don't know where it's going to go. Like we said, obviously, neither one of us wants to say or admit that it might take a couple years before we see
Oh,
another season here.
I hope not, man.
What do you think? I'm trying to figure out where I think they could go with the Norm storyline. Like he sits there, he figures out, okay,
And
all
he
of
gets
these
trapped in the
guys
vault, right?
and all of these people here are 200 plus years old being frozen vault tech execs if we assume that all of them there are
Yeah,
from pretty much that same deal. With that realization, like, okay, that's a pretty big eye opener, but I'm wondering, like, what is there to actually do with that information? Like, okay, that obviously people will be shocked to hear that in his vault in 32 is being, led by people that worked for Vault Tech, had a direct desire to see the vaults flourish
right.
and use Vault Tech products and everything. But I'm trying to figure out what I think that will change when he reveals this to people. What will that
Yeah.
really do? And I don't know if I
Especially
have a good
after
answer.
after Lucy, discovering all the stuff about her dad. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. I never really considered that. Um,
I'm not sure what it's going to be. I'm sure they're going to cook up something good, but in the same vein, I mean, yeah, I think the real not even trying to make this a pun here, but the real bombshell is the information that Lucy learns,
yeah.
which is, way more detrimental to her dad's reputation and Vault Tech's reputation. Um, so that paired with the fact that we have this information that her brother learned, maybe that will stage a mutiny or something of that sense. We don't even
Yeah.
really know. I mean, I guess it kind of going back to that Lost comparison, because at the very beginning, when they start to figure out who the others are, and there are people that aren't on the plane manifest, like I guess we technically don't have the full list yet of like who was from Vault 31.
Sure.
How many are in there? How many are like if her little brother runs back, gets to Vault 33 again and reveals this information, is there any chance that like 90% of them are like, yeah, we're with we're with Vault Tech too, like you're
Yeah.
outnumbered.
Well, I guess
So I
one
guess we don't really know.
interesting aspect could be, and I just thought of this now, is that what's his name? I forget what Walt Goggins' character's name, but maybe his wife is in one of those pods or whatever.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah, I
so
didn't
there
even think
could
about
be,
that.
yeah, there could be some interesting angle there. Also, another thing that I was just thinking about when you were going through it is, there could be tension that he's stuck in the vault trying to get out. No one knows where he is. He gets out. He's trying to, this Chicken Little, the sky's falling. Nobody believes him because
Yeah.
what's her name? Betty,
Yeah.
the
Betty.
the woman who's running things is like, no, he's crazy. She jails
Yeah.
him or whatever. So the whole journey of Lucy trying to get back to that vault to get to her brother could really make when things come to a head. I mean, it could build. There's definitely ways to go to build up suspension. I think, but yeah, as far as exploring it any further, it's like he kind of already figured
Yeah.
out everything right then and there. So that you're right. I'd be interested to see what angle they could really go with that.
I mean, do we think that Lucy ever even really goes back to the vault? Because I don't know if her story forward is there at all in the sense that, you know,
The only
like you
reason I would
said,
is because she said she was going back. She said she'd come back for her brother, didn't she?
I think she did say she'd come back
Yeah.
for her
So
brother.
that'd be the only reason I think that she'd go back is just to get her brother.
Right. I could see it I could see it like she shows up and he's nowhere to be found,
Yeah.
and she's kind of getting a weird, suspicious vibe from the overseer there and everything about where he actually went. I actually think, to be honest, I think this is just me thinking like she's so far from home right now and is probably going to be following. Obviously, we know she's going with the ghoul to Vegas or
Right.
following her dad's trail, which is taking her even further away from home at this point. Um, I think the reason we have the little brother's buddy that's
Uh-huh.
married to the new mother over there, that's we also found out it's from Vault 31. I think that's why they included that character in the first place, is because he's going to be realizing he let his buddy down and
Mhm.
he can't find him now. So he's like, his head's going to be racing with conspiracy theories, being like, I gotta track this kid down now because I
Yeah.
know something happened because we were on to something and I wimped out, you know? So I almost think that eliminates, as of right now, eliminates the need for Lucy to go back to the vault at all and continue
That's
her
fair.
story into Vegas because they have that Chet character that's gonna
Yeah.
man up finally and show some character growth and find little Norm hanging around in Vault 31 or something. So
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I could totally see that. That's yeah, man, I'm just intrigued. I'm also very intrigued to see um with with Walton Goggins' character. Um because he brought up his family. So I'm real intrigued to see one how he survived the blast because he's riding his horse at the very beginning with his daughter.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what happened there? Obviously, they're probably going to want to. I bet they'll spend a lot of time developing that whole sub story afterwards. Because where they left things in his flashback, I'm trying to remember what the last thing was. It was when when he discovered his wife was basically the one who was just like, "Hey, we're this, giant monopoly
She's
company."
in the war room or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She's essentially like Mark Zuckerberg or something, and it was just like, "Hey, let's be the ones that actually set off the nuke." Which I also thought that was an interesting angle because I don't recall that happening in the games. That it was basically like an employee of Vault Tech who was like, "Hey, in order for us to make more money, let's basically destroy all of civilization, and our vaults will be the only thing that keeps societies going." And
I
it's just a money
think
making machine.
in one of the games, I always forget if it's 3 or 4, but there's that central town where there's the unexploded nuke in the center of town. There's a nuke
That's
town.
3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if you go into there, and I just rewatched a video, which is why I remember this, is if you go up to the nuke right down there, you can see a very faint Vault Tech logo on it, and
Okay.
it's almost like a conspiracy in the game as well that Vault Tech did it themselves, obviously, because who would
Okay.
have more to
But then they
gain
just
than
admitted to it
them?
in the show.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I pride myself on being someone that isn't tricked or led astray very easily. And I don't know if you
Sure.
feel the same way, but
Yeah, I definitely do.
I did not really see it coming when it was Kyle McLaughlin was working at Vault-Tech as the Hank guy that was her assistant. I didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah, that actually, and like I said, like you just mentioned, yeah, I'm not easily tricked. I usually when they have those big reveals, I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
But that one, I was like, no, I didn't see that one coming, and the reason why he was kidnapped. And um, I didn't necessarily think that having her mom there as the ghoul, I didn't really care for that. I thought that was kind of forced in, but the Kyle MacLachlan twist, I didn't see it coming. I'll admit that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like the mom was kind of a quick emotional throw in to try and
Yeah.
get something
I
going
think
there, or
just
at
because she
least
was all zombified that there's just no emotional connection to it, so you're just kinda like, "Eh." Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think they're it seems like they're maybe trying to look for some quick device that would get Lucy, like, all out of sorts and stuff, which I
Yeah.
get, but I don't think it wasn't nearly as powerful for me as it was for her.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Speaking of her, so I was I was like, I saw something on Twitter because Twitter's obviously the nicest place on earth. Um, but they're like, "What's up with all these new, like, young actresses and these, like, giant eyes that
Yes.
out, like, the Anya
The Anya
Taylor-Joy and"
Taylor-Joy alien eyes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 and so I was looking at her and I was like, "Man, she's like an exact replica of Christina Ricci and Anya Taylor-Joy, like, just like they had a love child together," and I
That's a good
couldn't
call.
stop thinking that every time I looked at her. I was like,
I
"She could pass for either one of those actresses."
I definitely didn't think about it, but I definitely see the Christina Ricci stuff now,
Yeah, yeah.
100%. I didn't even like I think this is the first time I've ever seen her in anything. I think I remember that I saw her didn't know it when I was watching it, but I guess she has a part in Snyder's Army of the Dead. Um,
Yeah,
she's
that's
in that a little bit.
yeah, that's I think that's what I read. I'm honestly not familiar with her breadth of work either, so
I'll tell you this though, another thing that made her go way up in my book. Hopefully you watch this because it's amazing. Is that she's the voice of Jinx, the sister in Arcane? Did you ever watch that?
yes. Oh, yeah, dude, I love that
Yeah,
show.
yeah,
Well,
unbelievable.
speaking of another great video game adaptation.
Yeah. Also, speaking of another show that we're still waiting years on for
I
another
know,
season.
man.
Oh,
That's the thing I hate. So, like, even did you watch Invincible season 2?
I still haven't seen it yet. Like I told you,
Okay.
I was waiting because I know
Yeah,
there
I know
was the
you're
mid-season
waiting.
break, but I haven't seen it yet.
I just didn't know if you started it yet. So it's
Not
like
yet.
we wait years for that show to come out, and then it releases 4 episodes, and then they take a 4-month hiatus, and then they
Yeah.
release 4 more episodes. And so it's just like, dude, you made us wait all this time, and then we had to take a 4-month break where I forgot what even happened in the first 4
I
episodes.
think they know how much it's killing people too, because every time I'm on Twitter and see any announcement about Invincible, it's always like, we already have season 3 and 4 recorded. So
Yeah.
like they're like, we're not gonna do that again.
And I saw
Um,
that it got picked up to season 5, I think, today.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
but anyway,
loved
so
loved the
it's
first
this.
season.
Oh, yeah, the first season was great. The second season's fine. It's more of like one of those character growth seasons that
Right.
I think when the show's all said and done, you can go back and look at that show and be like, "Oh, that was really an important season." But when you're watching it at the time, like my biggest gripe with it is like, with season 1, they had such the big twist that his dad was, basically just this indestructible evil and just
Yeah.
murders everybody. But the bad guy, the villain in this one, like they start fighting at the end, and Mark is like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Yeah, who cares about this guy?" Like he does Invincible doesn't even know who this dude is. So
Yeah.
it was just a lot of people. I've seen a very mixed reaction to it, but I was kind of like, the ending wasn't. It was building towards it, kind of like the first season was, and then the first season hit you with like, a bunch of curveballs. This one was building to it, and you're just kind of like, eh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
and
gonna wait all that time for that.
I get what you're saying, though, where it's like, hopefully you look back on the season in a more favorable
Yeah,
light when there's more content, because it's like, okay, he needed to grow to get to this point to
yeah,
do what he's
exactly.
doing in the future season. But definitely when you're waiting that long and then they give you a crazy hiatus even in the middle of the season, I know that that's
Yeah,
definitely
that was
frustrating.
wild, and it's like, I was even I got my daughter's obsessed with Stranger Things, or she was, but she's always she just asked me the other day, she's like, "Dad, when is that show even coming back?" And I was like, "I don't know, the kids are probably, like, collecting Social Security by this point." Like, the
Literally.
first season came out in 2016. So,
Yeah, that is crazy.
that's how freaking long ago the show started, and they haven't even released season 5 yet, so I don't know, I think a lot of those streaming services do have a big problem of, of putting content
Like
out.
content pipeline, basically.
Yeah, the content, especially like the good quality stuff. Um, it just seems so few and far between. So when you find something you really like, you want to keep going, but it's not around.
Well, yeah, it's like that's an interesting dynamic, right? Because it's like, how do you take the same streaming service? And I didn't see this. I'm just going off people's reactions. Maybe you liked this, so I apologize in advance. But
No, it's okay.
um, how do you take the same streaming service that knocks it out of the park, puts the right creatives in where they need to be sitting, and like comes out with something like Fallout, and then a year
Yeah.
before that, you come out with like the most expensive show ever in like Rings of Power, and people are like, "This
Oh,
is absolute trash." You know what I mean?
it's so bad, man.
Like, I never saw it, and I'm a huge Lord of the Rings guy,
Yeah.
but I
And
stayed away. I was like, kinda.
I think the budget for that show was like 500 million too or something. It
I'm
was
pretty sure
insane.
I heard that they spent $500 million on just at the beginning to even get the rights from the Tolkien estate,
Well,
and
yeah, no,
then they spent whatever.
I think they spent 900 million or something, but they only got the rights to certain appendices. They didn't get the
Right,
rights to
right.
all of Lord of the Rings. So there's actually copyright laws that they have. Like they can't say certain words. They can't call Gandalf Gandalf in the show. They can't say the word Hobbit. They have to call them halflings or what is the term for it? The other term for
It's
Hobbit.
it's
So they're not.
crazy.
It's just like nothing about it feels like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
And I know you have some of those other YouTubers out there that like literally made their whole career off of hating that show, but it's
yeah,
like the issues are pretty valid for a lot of what they say, but also you're watching it and you're like, man, all this is style. Like there's no substance at all to any of this. So it's like it's almost like they like Bezos just got like one of those big yachts that he got just so he could rub it in your face, be like, I got Lord of the Rings, I can do whatever I
right,
want with it. But
right, yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
100%.
it's
Took his
you're so
long
right about
time.
that. It's like Amazon, I think, has been doing really well lately with a lot of the
Yeah.
content they've been putting out. Uh, but then you do have those misses. And
I
yeah, I
mean, you
think
got, future best picture winner and Ricky Stenicki, so there's a
did you
lot of
watch
good
that?
stuff. Yeah, I don't hate it like everyone else was hating it. I like it.
I didn't hate it. I thought John Cena was easily the best part. It's just, it's so hard to make comedies now
It
because they
harkened
always
back
play
to
it.
the early 2000s raunchy stuff, which, like, I used to consume all the time,
Oh
so
yeah,
I
me
didn't
too. And
yeah,
it was one of the Fairly Brothers movies. I mean, my problem I think now with comedy is like I want them to be edgier. Like it
yeah.
was
They're
raunch there for
not.
the sake of
Yeah,
raunch, but it's just everything about it played it safe. They added a
yeah,
bunch of the whole sappy crap into it, and I was just like,
yeah,
dude, this is the same guys that made There's Something About Mary, Kingpin, and Dumb and Dumber. Like
yeah.
we could really
We can
stretch because
kick it
those
up a notch here.
yeah, that had a lot. That had a really good premise, and I wanted to see it go further, but it was all right. I thought
Um,
I would have loved to see more those John Cena shenanigans because those were
Me
the only
too.
parts that really elicited some serious laughs from me in that movie.
But going back to Amazon in general, I think, like, when it comes to putting creatives in the right spot, they let people that should have been at the helm for Fallout, and they didn't
Sure.
really do the same for Lord of the Rings. And I remember actively deciding when I wasn't going to watch the Lord of the Rings of Power show was when that report came out that Peter Jackson wanted to help and the guys said no. You
Ah,
remember
yeah,
that?
yep,
And I was like, dude, you're taking the guy that like made not only like the best Lord of the Rings motion picture content we'll ever get, but like one of arguably the best trilogy that's ever been put to screen. And
yeah.
you're telling him to buzz off because you're
I
like
know.
doing your own version. I'm like,
Is it even arguably though? I feel like if anybody were to
yeah,
tell me there's a better trilogy, they're just lying to me, or they're just doing it because they're contrarians for whatever reason.
yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I don't I'm trying to think of what comes close. Like I'm a massive indie guy, but like I'm
Yeah.
not the biggest Temple of Doom guy. So like that's
Oh,
for me,
really?
that's where it kind of parts a little
That's
bit. But
fair. I think I grew
yeah,
up with Temple of Doom. Like that was my favorite when I was a kid.
yeah.
I watched it all the time. Um, so I have very fond memories of it. But I went back, I watched it with my stepson, and I was like, he thought that it was so great, and I was like, it's not obviously it's not the best.
Yeah.
And I never realized when I was younger that that's actually a prequel to Raiders.
I didn't
Um,
either. I think I actually realized that way too recently than I'd care to admit.
yeah, Yeah, same
Yeah.
same same with me. I think when I was watching it, I was like, "Oh crap, this actually takes place place before
Yeah.
Raiders." Uh, but it's still, there's still the nostalgia there, and I
Yeah.
still like the practical effects, and I think the storyline's pretty cool. It does wade into some, territory that isn't as good as the first and the third one. But, when you compare it to the most recent two ones, now
It's
it's
godly.
Citizen Kane
Yeah.
compared to the last two Indiana Jones movies. So
I have no problem admitting that I've come around partially on an ironic level almost with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull a little
okay.
just out of an enjoyment factor,
Yeah.
and
They have
especially
some fun
compared to
stunts in that movie.
Dial of Destiny. I'm like, okay, there's still a little bit of the at the end of the day, it's still Spielberg behind the camera.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like you still get some of that magic.
Yeah.
A lot of crap too, but
Oh boy.
um, you
Well,
know,
the
I
it's like you have the monkey scene, which is,
oh
that'll live in
god.
the monkey scene and the scene where he gets blasted in the lead
Oh,
refrigerator.
yeah.
But they also have like one of the best stunts done in any of the movies with the motorcycle chase scene. Like
Oh, yeah.
that scene still holds up really well. So
There was there and, it's like, you'll still get good stuff when there's people behind the camera that really understand the character.
yeah.
Like, going back to the motorcycle thing, when they go through the library and, like, skid to the stop, and there's that kid sitting there with the book, and he,
Yeah.
like, goes right up to him, and he's like, "Oh, thank God you're here, like, Dr. Jones, like, what do I need to know for the exam?" He's like, "Page 6, whatever," like, as
Yeah.
he's, like, driving out with it, I'm like, "That's a perfect moment." Like, that's
Yeah.
exactly how he would have reacted.
Yep.
But then yeah, anytime I talk kindly about the movie at all, someone says, "Well, the Tarzan Shia LaBeouf scene," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"All right, I can't
It's hard to
really."
argue against that scene.
Yeah, it's
I
so
remember the
it's
first
so
time
incredibly
watching that
bad.
movie and I saw that happen, I was like, "Really? What was Spielberg thinking? That's crazy."
I list that as a very important movie in my film watching career because I think
Okay.
that was the first time in my life that I went to a movie and had to grapple with the fact that movies could be bad.
Uh,
Like, it was like I was so hooked on indie growing up, and then, of course, I get my own when I'm growing up, even though everyone's older, I'm like, "Oh my god, I get my own entry in this now, like, this is incredible," and I
yeah,
was, like, a lot of conflicting feelings walking out because I knew it
sure.
wasn't good, but I was, like feel like I was telling myself, like, "Well, I've been waiting for this for years, so, like, I have to just say I like it, or, like, I have to make myself like it."
I know what you
And
mean.
that was, like, the
I
first movie that made me realize not all movies are good, I think.
I think all movie fans have that moment in their
Oh,
life.
yeah.
I think mine was Armageddon. I
Okay.
saw it in the theater, and I remember, like, I went with a group of friends. I think I was a freshman in high school. Maybe I was in 8th grade, I can't remember. It's been so long, but, I remember watching that movie, and after, we walked out, everyone was like, "Oh, it was so great," and I think it was just because all the girls in the group were all emotional at the Liv Tyler scene where
Yeah.
where Bruce Willis is saying bye to her and stuff. But I
Yeah.
remember watching it and going, like, walking out and going, I think I really didn't like that movie, like, at all. And then I watched it again recently because my daughter's kinda at that age where she loves everything, but
Yeah.
there's some movies where I know she's like, "Yo, that's pretty sus."
Yeah.
Um,
Was that one of them?
y n no, she actually loved Armageddon, but I
Okay.
took her to see the new Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
and we walked out, and she was like, I don't know about that movie.
Yeah.
Like she just kind of sat and she loves Ghostbusters. I showed her the first one when she was like a little kid. So now she kind of has that built into her DNA and she
Yeah.
loved Afterlife. So then when we saw Frozen Empire, she was all stoked for it. And then when we left, she was just kind of like, I don't know. I think she's like, I still liked it. And she always asked me, she's like, so dad, what would you rate that movie?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I took her to see the new Godzilla movie and she didn't want to see it. And
Mhm.
then I was like, "Well, I got free tickets. Let's go see it." And then she came out and she was like, "That was the best movie I've ever seen in my life." So she's still a
We're
little kid.
talking we're
Yeah,
talking Godzilla Kong?
Godzilla Kong.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. She just thought it was the best movie she's ever seen. Like, and it's just like I remember that age where you take me to see like some big stupid ass movie, and I'd
Yeah.
walk out and go, "That was so awesome." So
Yeah.
I'm glad that, movies can still have that effect on kids.
Side note there, because I would be remiss not to mention this. I mention this every time someone brings up the MonsterVerse. Is as the years go by, I keep upping my opinion on how good I think Kong Skull Island is. I don't know
Yeah,
if you are on the train there, but that's far and away, I think, the best MonsterVerse movie, and I think it's like the best blockbuster adventure movie we've gotten in a long time. It kind
it's
of gets
not
a
even
bad
close.
name.
It's not even
Um,
close for
because it's
me as far as
associated with that franchise. So it kind of gets like people are like, well, how good could it be? But I literally think it's the more I rewatch it, and like I was one of the Peter Jackson 2005 truthers. So I was always like,
I love that movie.
me too. But I was
Yeah.
always like, I almost felt like both couldn't be good. Like I walked in there and I like
Yeah.
walked out of seeing Skull Island when it came out, and I was like, like didn't really like it. And then every time I rewatch it, I'm like, this is an unbelievable adventure
Yeah.
blockbuster.
I
Like I'm
think I
hooked on
remember watching Kong Skull Island the first time, and I was struck by how earnest it was.
it. Mhm.
Now they're just big, goofy ass movies with zero plot, and it's just they're ridiculous. They're fun, but they're ridiculous.
Well,
Like
Godzilla Kong is the best movie ever,
yeah,
but
according to my daughter, yeah. But like even just the plot of the girl who's all of a sudden seeing these weird shapes that's like of her tribe that's in you know
yeah, I didn't like that.
Hollow Earth. And I was like, "What? Couldn't it just be like a message or something? What are you talking?"
Right.
I don't know. It was mind-numbingly stupid. But Kong Skull Island at least took the source material really seriously, and even the first Godzilla did too. Uh, and now it's just funny seeing like the direction they've gone versus like Godzilla minus one just came out and it was like one of the best movies in the last few years. So yeah, it's interesting because I bet if I were to put on Godzilla minus one for my daughter right now, she'd be like, "Oh, I have to read this whole movie." you know,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have near the same impact to her. But if I show her that movie when she's probably like 20 or something, she'll probably think it's like the greatest movie ever. So
Because it is.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I even have
I,
that Godzilla minus one sign up there.
yeah, what is that? A poster?
No, it's like a little tin.
Tin, yeah.
Yeah,
I do think though I've softened up over the years of being like realizing that big characters can fit into they can wear different hats, I guess. Like it's very obvious to me now that Godzilla being able to be in something like minus one and then having him be in the Monsterverse movies, it shows how versatile he is as a character. In
sure.
that, like, there is whether I crap on one of them and not the other or not, um, there is a place in the industry for both versions, which is like not that's like pretty rare.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and like the
I know they're gonna
fact
try it
that
in DC with Batman, so we'll see how that
yeah,
goes.
yeah, we'll see how that goes. I don't know about that. I think I'm honestly like other version of Batman out, I think.
You and me
Um,
both, man.
yeah. I don't know where they're
I'm
gonna take
also
that.
just I'm also kind of I mean, I know the Batman gets a ton of love, and it's like I didn't hate the movie by any means. I think it's a good film. I just also was like, I'm so tired of this, like of the just the super morbidly Batman that like the gritty, realistic Batman. I kind of want to over the top the Bat God from the comic books. I think it'd be
Mhm.
fun to see where he has just like kind of the armor with where I don't see his eyes at all. And one thing I actually heard once, and I was like, I don't know why movie studios don't do this, is that instead of announcing who the actor is going to be for Batman, is take a picture of him in the bat suit and see if we can guess who it is. Then that way you know his identity's good or not. And I
I
was
like
like, dude,
that.
that's freaking genius. That'd be genius PR.
That
But
is
that's a
GDPR.
whole other thing. I just thought I'd bring it up.
I do like that. But I am someone that thoroughly loved the Batman, so
Yeah. No, and it's fair. And I totally see why. I mean, I think Matt Reeves is great. The Planet of the Apes movies had no business being as good as they were.
yeah.
So
I think that version of the Batman is basically the perfect combination. Granted, it's PG-13, but so is the perfect combination you can get of mixing Batman, Seven, and Saw. That's what I think those three things
sure.
basically together came together to like.
I mean, the way they made
create
Colin
that.
Farrell look and his makeup is like one of the most impressive makeup jobs I've ever seen.
Yeah, you looking forward to that show?
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah.
I love Colin Farrell, man. To me, he's one of those actors that when he first came out, everybody thought he was a giant raging douchebag.
Yeah.
But as he's no, for real, like I
Yeah,
remember
no,
his first
I
real
remember.
big breakout movie was Minority Report. And I remember people were like, "Oh, this is the next George Clooney," and he kind of like took on that persona, and everybody thought he was this just giant Irish dickhead. But then he started doing like more indie roles, and then when In Bruges came out, I remember that was the
Oh,
first time I'd ever watched a movie that I didn't really, I didn't really think much was going to happen. I saw it in the theater with my girlfriend at the time, and I came out and I was like, I think that might be like one of the best movies I've seen in like forever. Like, that
bro,
movie was
that
fantastic.
movie kicks
He
ass.
is the reason why it's so good. And I go back and
Rock.
watch it every Christmas now. I made it one of my Christmas movies to watch.
It's like a buzzkill and a great Christmas movie at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah. It's
You
definitely not
know?
a feel-good movie,
No, that is
but that scene
incredible.
where he's talking to Brendan Gleeson, about how, when he's trying to kill himself and then
Yeah,
he just breaks down about how he killed the boy.
yeah.
I'm like, dude, that's one of the best acting jobs I've seen that nobody talks about. He was
That,
so good in that movie.
that movie also convinced me that, like, Brendan Gleeson quickly got added to my list of, like, if they were in every movie ever, I wouldn't
I'd
be
watch it.
upset. Yeah,
Yeah,
I wouldn't be upset.
yeah. His son could have taken that path, and I like Domhnall, but, not he doesn't have the Brendan Gleeson, charisma.
Well, even though it wasn't really thanks to his performance all that much, I will say he'll always get a pass in my book for having anything to do with Ex Machina because I that's like a
Yep,
top 10 movie for me ever.
I love
So
that film. I love that
that's
film.
an unbelievable. I think that's my favorite A24 by far.
Yeah,
Um, but
I like
that
that, and I like Uncut Gems.
yeah,
I think well, actually, I'll take that back. My favorite's probably Hereditary, but Ex Machina is
yeah.
up there. I just
My
Hereditary, the first time I saw it, I couldn't believe how good of a horror movie that was.
me and my
But I'm
buddy
just
were stunned.
yeah,
Like we I have like one of my friends is like my go-to horror guys and
yeah.
like we've seen
That's me.
everything.
Horror's like my favorite genre.
Nothing creeps me out, anything like that.
Yeah.
Love the hell out of the genre, and it was like that movie left both of us kinda, like, speechless.
Yep. Yep. I couldn't believe how much I like that movie.
But my hot take, because you brought up Uncut Gems, is I think the much better Safdie movie is Good Time. I'm absolutely obsessed with Good Time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're both great. And I mean, Adam Sandler should have gotten more love from the award circuit for Uncut Gems for sure.
Dude, I couldn't speaking of, and we'll get back to Fallout after this, but
Yeah, no, we're on a hey, you
yeah,
know
we're
what?
all
It's
we're all
just
we're all
like
we're just doing our
I
movie nerd
I
thing.
haven't had anyone to talk to, like, out loud with movies in a little bit, so it's
I
like,
get it,
whatever,
man.
we're on a tangent, who
You and
cares?
me both. But the man, you should go back on my YouTube review of Spaceman and just see how pissed off people were that I thought it was just okay.
Yeah,
Like I couldn't I've never had that much of a shitty reaction from people, and it's like to me it was almost humorous because I was like, dude, I didn't realize people were so passionate about this material. Because to me, I was like, it set up a lot of cool things, but then when everything kind of unfolded, I was like, this movie answers pretty much zero questions.
yeah,
And Adam Sandler's character is kind of an asshole. His wife's kind of an asshole. He realizes he's being an asshole because of his imaginary spider friend. So I was, and I think you kind of felt the same way. You're like, it's not a bad movie. It's not a great movie. It's right in the middle. I'll probably forget about it in a week.
yeah,
And I
I
put
was
that out there, and people were like, "You're just not intelligent enough to understand."
that was another down the
True.
middle for one for me too. I gave it like a 2.5 out of 5, and that you're right, like, thinking I didn't really associate it with that, but thinking back to it as you talk about it, um, that was definitely a review that I got way more than normal negative reaction,
Yeah, I
because it
just
was
thought
like
I was shocked.
it was either one it seemed like there was no one I mean, like, you and me were in the middle, but that was, like, a rare thing. It seems like it was either this was a 10 out of 10 or this was, like, absolute garbage. Those are the
Absolute
2.
dog shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually
Um,
saw a lot of that. A lot of people were hating on it, and then all of a sudden, like I think I had like 300 comments on that video that I put
yeah.
up, and it was people are like, you don't know what you're talking about. Bro's just yapping. And after a while, I was just like, man, I think it's just bots because people are telling me I'm just yapping, but they're not saying anything else about the movie. I'm like, that's
I've ne-
literally what I do is just talk about movies if it's good or not.
I haven't even heard the word yapping since I was like 7 years old, I feel
Mhm.
like. But like I remember it's funny because it was a no-win situation because like you said, the comments were all like, "You're an idiot. You're not smart enough to realize this is a 10 out of 10." But it was also, "You're an idiot. You don't realize that this is a 0 out of 10." Like it's like it was no
It's
matter
like
which way you looked at it, I
damned
was
if
a
you do,
dumbass.
damned if you don't.
Literally. But I will say, sticking with that movie particularly for a second, one thing that did happen is I got a few comments from guys that loved it and they were all military dudes that were talking about when they were like on tour or
Uh-huh.
anything like that, the loneliness they felt was like the loneliness they were seeing in that movie and they connected to it immensely. And I was like, well, that just shows you how much the personal experience affects how you view a
Yeah,
movie and talk about it, because I'm
yeah,
like, that makes total sense to me why you loved it because of your scenario and your life path. Because I would have never thought about that way perfectly. I mean, like,
yeah. Yeah, a lot of
speak.
I actually I got a lot of feedback from that way too, where
Yeah.
people were like, this made me kinda one guy goes, "This movie made me realize, how much I miss my wife's that or made me realize I miss my wife so much that I finally started paying my child support." So,
At least he's honest.
yeah, yeah. I was like, "Okay." Well, I mean, whether it's true or not, it's a funny comment.
Yeah. But okay, going back to Fallout in
Oh,
general,
yes. Yes, yes, yes. The reason we're talking
the
right now.
reason we're talking, um, thinking about it because we were talking about Brendan Gleeson, is I'm pumped that a guy like Walton Goggins has this role
Me too, man.
because he's a dude for me that I always loved. Because did you ever watch Justified?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah,
killer
Raylan or
role
what
in
was his
that.
name in that?
He was Boyd Crowder.
Boyd, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and, like, one of honestly, when it comes to, like, kind of a basic television show like that that's kinda readily available, I think it was on FX originally or
Yep.
whatever, um, that was one of the most, like, complex characters/villains slash villains I encountered
Yeah,
when I was in my formative years watching television,
sure.
like, in a long time, like,
'Cause you
sometimes
love
he
to
was a
hate him.
villain. Yeah, sometimes he was a villain, sometimes he was helping out, like, he
Yeah,
had his own agenda and his own code, and he stuck
yeah,
to it, and that instantly became one of those things where I was like, even though like he's one of those actors for me that if I only saw him in one thing, I was like, again, anytime he's in something, I'm gonna check it
yeah,
out.
yeah. He was very, duplicitous. I remember him from did you ever watch Oz?
I never watched it. I have a buddy that always tells me to watch it,
Yeah,
but I
he
never
was in
saw it.
Oz, and then he was in The Shield with Michael Chiklis. So I
Oz is
remember seeing
J.K.
him.
Simmons, right?
Yeah, yeah, J.K.
Yeah,
Simmons is the lead in the show, and then,
yeah.
the guy from, Michael from Lost was in it too.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember his name. Uh, but yeah, Oz, I mean, I watched that show when I was, like, way too young to be watching that show.
Yeah.
Because I think the first episode, J.K. Simmons gets a swastika tattooed onto his ass, and so I remember, like, I was, like, 14,
We're in
15
the
watching
deep
that,
end
being like
now.
yeah, being like, "I don't wanna go to prison."
Yeah.
But I think he Walton Goggins was real young, but he was in that show, and then he played a cross dresser, I believe, in, The Shield. So I remember him from that, and then when Justified came out, I was like, "Oh, yeah, that dude." Like, I've seen him in other things, so that was kind of one of those first roles that I remember watching him going, "He's a really damn good actor," because he's a character that you love to hate. He's a very
Yeah.
nuanced character. He's a very complicated character in, Justified. And then, did you ever watch Vice Principals on HBO with him and Danny
No, but
McBride?
I would see clips and I would be like, I should probably watch this at
Dude,
some point, but
it's I mean, it's what's his name? David Gordon Green. So it's
mhm,
kinda got that twisted humor with, like, some just, like, fucked up things happen all the time in that show.
yeah.
But the banter between him and Danny McBride is absolutely top-notch hysterical. And
Which
then
he's one of those guys that I feel like you wouldn't know had comedic chops like that.
yeah. Yeah, because he has a real odd face, like, it's
He
almost
does
like
that, yes.
yeah, I don't
So,
know,
I mean, I hate all respect to Walton Goggins, but, like, he kinda looks like a skeleton already. So,
yeah,
like, the
yeah.
ghoul thing fits,
It fits
but
perfectly.
yeah.
And the, what was it? Oh, the Righteous Gemstones. He just
Mhm.
steals the show in or in that chamber. When I watched that, I was like, dude, like this guy has to get a role where everybody's just talking about how good he is. And
Yeah.
now that's all anybody's talking about with Fallout. So I'm really happy to see that. But I'm like, dude, I've been on this train for a long time.
Do you think, because something I wonder about is he's far and away, and the casual moviegoer, you could make the argument, doesn't know Walton Goggins' name.
Sure.
But he's obviously, as of right now in today's time, the most prominent name that's in this show.
Yeah.
Um, but I wonder, like, do you think, because for a while there, video game adaptations or anything linked to that kind of medium, I wouldn't say it was frowned upon or kind of looked at as less of, but like I almost wonder, like, if he ascended and became as big as I think he should have with how talented he is, would he have taken a part like this? You
I
know what I
don't know.
mean?
Probably not.
Yeah, I
Probably
don't
not.
think so.
'Cause I've seen some interviews with him about Fallout, and he has no idea. Like, he's like,
Right.
I don't think he'd even heard of the video games before he was offered the role.
Yeah.
Uh, but I know the role was made with him in mind. So,
Yeah.
but no, probably I mean, like I said, one of the things that surprised me about the show were kinda some of the cameos that popped up while they were, going through it, and it was kinda like no fanfare cameos, which I like. Those are the cameos that I enjoy the most. Um, but yeah, I'm not, but now that I think about it, like who else could have really played that role like he did?
Mhm. I agree with you there, though, that like I love the way that they did the cameos because
Yeah.
it's one of those things where there are some cameos that pop up for the sake of just doing it. And it's like, at that point, you're watching the person, the celebrity themselves
Right.
show up. You're not watching whoever they're playing in this world because it's just so obvious that it's them.
Yeah.
And um Fallout does it in such a way, I don't know if it's in the style in which they pick what characters they wanna have people cameo in or whatever, like, the scenarios they put them in, but it's one of those things where, like, you'll find it funny or you'll find it effective even if you have no idea who the actor is. It's not like a big thing that you don't get the joke if you don't know who Michael Rappaport is. You don't not
Right.
get the joke if you don't know who Fred Armisen is. It
Yeah.
just kinda plays.
Yeah.
And I think, like one thing I keep going back to Marvel, but one thing that kind of reminds me of this is like the Bill Murray part in Ant-Man 3
Oh
where
yeah.
it's just like it was basically just he was so underutilized. He was shoehorned in there just so that Bill Murray could be in the marketing material. And like
Yep.
it was just you knew you were going to see him, even if he's in it for like 8 minutes. But like some people were sitting there, I'm sure, that were on the fence. We were like, Bill Murray's in it.
Yeah.
And like that wasn't like if you gun to my head, there's no way in a million years I'd ever be able to tell you what his character's name was in that movie.
No. No.
Never.
All I know is that he came in and it was basically just like, "Hey, I used to bang your wife,"
He was like a
to Michael Douglas.
politician
Yeah.
in that world or something. I don't know what
Yeah.
is going on. But it's
Yeah.
like
That was that.
in
God, that
in
movie was so bad.
in Fallout, none of that happens. Like I wonder if like they just know how to incorporate that so well that like if you took a Bill Murray and put him in Fallout, would they
Right.
be able to achieve the same effect or would I be sitting there? Like obviously there are some guys that are just so larger than life that I'd be like, that's Bill freaking Murray. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but um
Yeah, I
but
mean, Bill Murray almost had a cameo in the new Ghostbusters movie. It wasn't there was no reason for him to be in that movie.
yeah,
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 I
whatsoever.
guess that's just what he does now is just like he shows up.
Just
He's like,
phoning
"I'm
it
Bill
in.
Murray," and then goes and collects a paycheck.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice life. I can't blame him
Oh,
for it,
yeah,
but,
yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
the stories of Bill Murray are legendary too.
they
Have you
are.
ever gone down that rabbit hole?
Like, all the, like, peekaboo stuff and, like,
Yeah, like just
I
showing up at
love
someone's house before
yeah.
and just being like, "No one will ever believe you,"
Yeah,
stuff.
I love that. I heard, going on another tangent here, but I heard that, he still to this day I heard that he's never had an agent,
Oh,
apparently.
Oh, he has a
Yeah, and
voicemail that you
he
can
just has
call.
the 800 number or
Yeah,
something that you like, if you want him in a movie or something, you pitch it on the voicemail and maybe he'll get back to you or
yep.
something.
And
That's
there
insane.
and to this day, he sticks by the only reason he did the Garfield movies was because he thought that it was one of the Coen brothers that offered
Yeah,
him the role.
yeah. I remember
I was
he's
like,
like,
"What
"Er."
how would the Coen brothers ever be involved with Garfield, dude?"
That's so insane. I mean, he couldn't believe it either. He jumped at the opportunity.
Yeah, I wanna be in a Coen brothers movie, and I guess I have to be a
That's so
fat,
crazy.
tabby cat that eats lasagna, then let's do it.
That was so wild that he was in that movie. Like, it did seem like it was, like, right out of left field, but now, Chris Pratt's taking up the
I
mantle.
know, and the trailers aren't I don't think it looks very good, but I mean, I
No,
could
I
be
don't
wrong.
I don't think it looks very good either, but I've never been a huge Garfield guy anyway, but
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I watched it a little bit when I was a kid, but it's apparently it's got a pretty big fan base, so
I think I kind of remembered it the most as, like, a comic strip my grandfather would read or something, where, like, I don't think I ever watched it really in the TV medium, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
um,
Chris
oh,
Pratt's just getting his all of his voice acting,
yeah,
now.
yeah.
It's crazy.
He was fine as Mario. I remember people were bitching about it, then when I saw the movie, I was and then no one said anything. They were like, "Yeah, he's fine."
Yeah. Um, Thinking about going back to Walton Goggins,
Yeah,
like, his storyline at the end of the show, I'm wondering, I know you're like, what you said, I do agree, like, there's a lot of in between, a lot happened clearly in that 200 years where
yeah,
he's the movie star or a Western actor, I don't know if I'd call him a star,
yeah.
and, um, and kinda just the ghoul that we see him in as the show, like, 200 years later. I'm wondering, like, what they're gonna give us next season in the sense of, are they gonna give us still him as the movie star now that he found out what his wife wanted to do? Because I'm wondering, like, how much more is there to explore there? Or is it now gonna be still Ghoul, but, like, very close to, like, post bomb drop?
Right.
Maybe that side of him. I'm curious if we even see the human side of him at all going forward, or if that was like,
I'm sure they're gonna go back and address that,
yeah,
probably, I think maybe leading up to the bomb, or maybe there'll be, like, a quick maybe not a montage, but maybe they'll spend 1 episode going through what happened, and then maybe it'll go to, like, what happened after the bomb dropped. But there's gotta be some sort of lead up to where he is now, that I'm sure
would
they're gonna
it
explore.
would it be too obvious and, like, too predictable, or do you think at the end of this road, his he will find some kind of way to interact with his family again?
I th I especially the way they left it in the last season, he's like, "Where the hell is my family?" or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely the direction they're going. And with going back to what we said about, what's his name, who got stuck in the vault, her brother. What's his name?
Norm.
Norm, yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know how I forget that, that's just such a unique name.
I know.
Um, but anyway, finding out that, if he finds maybe his wife in there or something, I'm sure there's gonna be I'm just curious as to what happened with his daughter since the bombs were dropping while he was riding horseback down a giant, down Mulholland Drive.
What an awesome opening scene,
It was
though.
really cool, man.
Like, God, that was so cool.
And
I
the way he reacted to it too is like just being a dad, and if situation were popping off, it's almost like I feel like every dad out there would be like, "Yeah, no, that's totally what I would do."
That's how it would play out.
Like, you don't wanna panic in front of your kid, but you're also like, "Well, there
This is
goes,
it.
there it is."
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that was such an insane opening scene. Like I said, I was so pumped I got to see that on IMAX
Yeah,
because it
that's
was
all.
just like,
I actually had an opportunity to go to that. I couldn't make it that night. It was on, like, a
yeah,
Tuesday or something.
because obviously I didn't know what to expect, but it was like I said, me and my buddy are big fans of the franchise, and we sat down and, like, when it started, we were hoping for the best, but, like, didn't really know what to expect.
Sure.
And it was like it opened up, kicked off with, like, the classic old style music of Fallout, and then gives
Yep.
you that first scene, and I was like, all right, we're in good
Yep.
hands.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
we'll see how this plays out, but, like, I'm already pretty sold just on the vibe. And that opening scene might be like the best opening scene of a show I've seen in a
Yeah, yeah, and,
while.
I was thinking about this too, so much of like when you go back and think about the all-time classic series is the one that always kind of has has like the red check mark next to it is the first season. The first season's always like trying to figure out what the show wants to be. You know, Breaking Bad's first season wasn't great. The Office first season wasn't great. The Sopranos first season wasn't great. There's so many first seasons that you look back on and you're like, man, that was probably the worst season of all these shows. And
Yeah.
the reason I really like this show is because I'm like, man, the first season was freaking awesome. Like they
It already knew what it
really,
wanted to be.
yeah. And I was talking the other day to my fiance about it because she's watching Smallville right now, and she loves it. She'd never seen it before, and I went through watched every episode a few times. And the reason, like going back watching that, and I was like, man, this show's so corny, and its premises are ridiculous, and it's like, oh, if you're a Superman loyalist, like none of this crap ever happened beforehand. But the reason you like the show so much is because of how much time you get to spend with the characters, and you really get to know them. And that's what I miss is I miss watching a show where they really take the time to develop their characters. And that's why I was really digging the Walt Goggins storyline in this because I was like, man, you're really getting to know who this dude is. So I wish we could go back to like the 20 episode seasons, but I mean, what would that cost for a show
I
that looked
can't
as
even
good as
imagine.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing now is like movies and TV shows look just as good as movies. Back when Smallville was out, like they look terrible because they'd shoot it and then have to air it a month later.
Yeah.
So you know, now they get to spend all this time uh creating these shows. You know, they shoot them a year in advance so they can spend time on the post production and the effects and everything. But
You're so right though. Like I couldn't imagine what the price would be for something like
oh
that
my
now.
god,
Like every show that my fiance watches is like one of those shows she never watched when we were growing up. So she's going back and checking them out, but they're all the shows that have like 24 episodes a
yeah,
season.
yeah,
And it's just insane that they were able to have that kind of output. Like again, going back to what I was saying earlier, Lost. Loved
yeah.
that Lost had that many
Yeah.
episodes. Like, was it also partially its downfall? Probably towards the end because they had to
Yeah,
explain too
they're
much.
starting to
And
put a lot of filler episodes in there. But see
yeah,
now, like I was gonna ask you this, like, you know, Last of Us was kind of like the new high bar as far as video game content's concerned. And I thought the show was good, not great. And the reason being is because I felt there was 8 episodes, but 2 of them were filler episodes. They had nothing to do with the rest of the show. And I felt like they just put them in there just because they could and they knew it was gonna piss some people off. And that's why I would say Fallout's a better show because they didn't waste any time. Like there weren't any episodes that I look back on and go, "Oh, that wasn't crucial to this happening. That wasn't crucial to this happening." When I was watching Last of Us, I was like, you know, the 3rd episode's a great, beautiful episode, whatever you want to say about it, but it had nothing to do with the rest of the show.
it
So
was almost they
that's
were looking for that Emmy, you know?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
So you know, that's why I would definitely rate Fallout higher than I would, Last of Us. And even it's gonna be real interesting to see how the reaction is to the new season because
Have you
the
played
second
both
game
games?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and the second game, like, I didn't really care for it all that much, it didn't make any sense to me. I don't know if we should spoil it here, but, like, the ending, I was like, "Wait a second, what?"
Yeah.
I was like, all that happened, you know, all the dead bodies behind it. Now you decide that didn't make any sense. But
I love the first game,
the
obviously.
first game's amazing.
I think I actually like the second one more than most people, but
The
yeah, no, I
gameplay's
completely
fun.
agree.
I enjoyed
Gameplay
the
is great.
gameplay the second one. I just thought the story was stupid.
Yeah.
So,
I
you
mean,
know,
apparently they're making another one. We'll see what they do, but
yeah, that'll be interesting. And like I was watching you know, the Uncharted movie wasn't great.
mhm.
But I was like, that would make a really awesome series if like Amazon or something were to pick that up and
So
with that.
I've had like I have it's like me and Uncharted in my relationships like an ex-girlfriend relationship that didn't end very well.
Oh,
It's
really?
like it's like I love the games. I mean, obviously, as a guy who's Raiders is my favorite movie. So it's
Yeah,
like this is the closest thing I get to like living out my Indiana Jones
yeah,
fantasy, even though it's modern day. I'm like, these Nathan Drake Uncharted games are incredible. like was
So
obsessed with them
cinematic.
growing up. Yeah, they're so cinematic. You like you said, kind of with the whole 20 episode season, you get to spend a lot of time with these characters. They have
Yeah.
great personalities. Um, so the reason I'm so conflicted, even though I have come to not like it but accept it with the movie, is the casting is terrible in my mind.
Oh
Like
yeah.
if you're going for a game accurate casting, it's absolutely horrid. The
Yep.
way that I've been able to enjoy it, or at least enjoy thinking about it, is that like I can enjoy the movie if you completely take the Uncharted label off of it. Like this basically just isn't the
Yeah.
idea that I signed up for in the
Yeah.
slightest. Um, if it just wants to be a generic action adventure movie with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, it did okay
Yeah.
being that.
Yeah, but because you're comparing it to all the source material, yeah, you're right.
It's like it's just unavoidable because it has that label on it. But I do think I've always said that I think for me personally, I don't know about for the regular person out there, but for me personally, I think adventure is the easiest genre to have fun with and to kind
Yeah.
of buy into.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it more than I thought I was gonna, even though the comparisons to the game and the IP like just left me wanting so many things that they were not able to provide, especially because like I don't know if you ever watched that leaked, or maybe it even wasn't leaked, but
The
the
fan
YouTube
film?
video, the Nathan Fillion one,
Yeah. That one was
killer.
awesome.
Yeah, it was absolutely killer. I loved that.
Yeah, and Stephen
Um,
Lang as, Sully.
and that also just would get me mad about like that's another constant reminder of how much of a business Hollywood is. Like you
I
had this
know.
guy Nathan Fillion that like 10 to 15 years ago he was tailor made, even looked like the guy, had the
Yep.
personality. He should have been in that, but he's not like a bankable huge star. So like it wasn't ever going to happen. And video game movies weren't in a good spot then anyway. So it was like so it's timing's everything. And you know, I just Tom Holland isn't Nathan Drake to me. Mark Wahlberg
Uh,
definitely isn't Sully. But like I said, if I detach the title off of it, it's a more than serviceable adventure romp.
yeah, I'm with you. I actually liked him because I remember I saw it, and everyone was shitting on it, and then I was like, "Ah, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was." Like, I took the kids, they had fun.
Yeah,
But because, I love the game so
you can't
much,
ignore that.
yeah, you can't ignore it. It just, like, I wouldn't say it's the worst video game adaptation by any stretch. I wouldn't even put it in, like, the top 10 worst. But
No
it's,
way.
yeah, but it's not, it had a lot of potential, and like you said, if you just took if you just called that movie anything other than Uncharted, it probably would have been, you know, I
Yeah, I
would
don't know what you would have
we
called it,
probably
but
would have
it's
looked at it
fine.
with a whole different set of eyes.
Because I remember, like, looking back on it, like, I remember, like, the whole flying pirate ship finale was, like, pretty
Yeah,
fun, you know?
yeah,
Like, it's
oh
pretty
yeah,
um, but yeah, no, I
yeah.
can't be labeling it that.
Yeah, those games are so good, man. And you saw they're coming out with that Indiana Jones game, right?
Yes, I am, I don't know how to feel, about that one. I go back and forth. I think I'll just say this. Obviously, I'm gonna play it day one. Like I can't help
Yeah,
myself, and it's
yeah,
Bethesda, so like hopefully it's solid up to par. Even though I think that they've been in a little bit of a downward spiral, but
yeah. I
um,
never played StarCraft, and I heard it was very,
Starfield, get it right,
Starfield. Sorry,
Chris.
yeah, yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it was very unremarkable. Like I was like I threw myself into it, spent like 100 hours playing, and then
Did you
after
really?
I'm afterwards I'm like I never need to pick this up ever again. Like it's just like
Wow.
it didn't leave a lasting impact. You don't want to keep hanging out in the world. So I was upset about that. Like, you know, it's like it was probably like a 6 out of 10, but for Bethesda that means it's like a 1 out of 10,
Yeah,
you know,
dude.
because it's like
Yeah, totally.
you're expecting landmark stuff. But I will say, and I'm getting a call from the fiance, so this is probably my like 2-minute warning here. But I my parting words on the Indiana Jones game would be how do you not make it third person? I feel like you want to see him in
Oh,
the jacket, in the hat, and the mechanics with
yeah,
the whip would work so much better. I don't know why it's FPS,
yeah.
but
Did you ever play the
um
old Xbox game? You were probably really young when it
I
came out, but
never
it was
did. Yeah, I
freaking
never did.
awesome, dude. It was an
Yeah.
awesome game. It was
And
made
that
by
was
the
third
same.
person, right?
Yeah, it's third person,
Yeah.
and It came out during like all the Tomb Raider fervors, even before Uncharted came out, and it was developed by the people that made the Buffy the Vampire Slayer game, which are killer.
I haven't played that
And you
either,
can't.
obviously.
I don't think you can even find them anymore. They came out with for the
Really?
original Xbox. There was Buffy 1 and Buffy 2. And
Yeah.
then they like back when they came out, I was actually working at GameStop at the time, and that was all anybody was talking about was how good the Buffy game was.
Yeah.
So when Indiana Jones came out, it was made by the same group of people that made Buffy. I was like, I bet it's going to be pretty good. And then it came out and it was awesome.
You did a
So I'm
good
like,
job surrounding yourself with fellow nerds at some of these jobs.
oh
GameStop,
yeah, man.
Sharper Image, like
Yeah, dude.
keep the
Yeah.
ball rolling.
It's funny. Well, I worked at the mall and GameStop was right next to Sharper Image. So I was working at both at one point in time.
I love that.
before I moved to LA and got to experience Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, anything to make ends meet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sharper Image, GameStop.
Yeah, these are all well, GameStop's still around, but
Yeah.
I don't know for how much longer.
I don't know. If they keep giving me like 30 cents on my trade-in value, not long.
It's crazy, dude.
So.
I remember doing that 20 years ago or whatever. I worked there
brutal.
and people get so pissed and I'm just like, what do you want me to do? I just work here.
Yeah. Just scan the code, see what the price is.
That was back when games were $50 when they first came out. Now they're 70.
Yeah. I know. And it's like that's base. It's like, oh, pre-order deluxe stuff, and it's like $100.
Everything's a cash grab in video games now, dude. It's so ridiculous.
I don't know if you saw, but they have that new Star Wars one coming out, and like everyone's pumped because like Jabba the Hutt's in it, and then they found out that all those Jabba the Hutt missions you have to pay extra.
Yeah, it's a DLC. Yep. Yeah, man, I know. And I really like the Yakuza games. I don't know if you ever played those.
Yeah, I didn't play it.
Freaking incredible games, man. But they just came out with the new one, the like the Dragon series. And it's so many microtransactions in it that people are just like, these video game companies, man. It's like everywhere you go now, you have to tip. Yeah. I feel like that's what video game companies have become. It's like, oh, you want to do this? Pay us money. Oh, you want to do this in the game? Pay $20 more. So
it's funny. It's like I feel like I've reached that gaming juncture where it's like it's kind of the same way for it was in movies for a while, where it's like I wasn't liking any new stuff coming out, so I'm watching old stuff. Yep. And now it's like I'm going back to old games. I mean, like I'm about to start playing Fallout 4 again.
It's the same, dude. Yeah, that's actually a big problem. I was talking about that the other day. It's like, unfortunately, like I'm in talks with one company about doing like a lot of movie stuff with them. It's a movie app that's I think it's going to compete with Letterboxd. But it's more interactive. It's like I can't say too much about it, but it's like
you giving me a scoop right now?
Yeah, a little bit of a scoop, but
I love it.
I mean, you can download the app. It's really cool. It's still kind of like in its beta phase, like they're still fleshing some things out.
What's it called?
It's called Moviac, MOVIA.
Oh yeah. I think I know a guy that I saw like talking about it or something.
Yeah, so essentially the app is like has an algorithm built in the app. So like the more stuff you review and the stuff you like, it takes the stuff that you like the best and it'll give you recommendations. So like, let's say you're on Netflix,
algorithmic
doom scrolling. Yeah. Instead of doom scrolling, it'll be like, hey, try this show next. You'll probably like this show. So it's pretty cool. And then you can rate shows on it too. I mean, they've got some kinks in there. What's that?
Have you found anything yet because of that you don't think you would have been on your radar?
Well, I just, no, not really.
Yeah. I mean, we know a lot.
Yeah, it's good for like casual, like a bunch of our buddies. I'd be like, hey, download this app, rate a few things, and then it's going to give you. It's got like a wizard, it'll give you a whole bunch of different recommendations. But most of my guys are like Moviac, MOVIAC. That guy's just asking.
Moviac, Luke.
Yeah,
download it. Yeah, remember where you heard about it.
Brian Austin Green's one of the owners of it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So anyway,
it makes sense. I mean, Letterboxd has pretty much a chokehold on that part of the
and so what I compared it to is like Letterboxd is kind of like the pretentious film student, whereas Moviac's kind of like the frat boy who wants to watch old school for like the 5th time.
That's kind of where I usually like to hang out anyway.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah.
You and me both.
Yeah.
So
I mean, because Letterboxd, I mean, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but Letterbox kind of seems like it's now just become a competition to see who can see the movie first and then come up with like the funniest little one-liner
Yeah.
or pretentious review of it that's going to
Yep.
rack up, like the likes and stuff
Yeah,
like
I
that.
don't
So,
I don't use it as much as I used to because it was fun for a little while, but yeah, it gives me whiffs of like being back in film school and listening to the
yeah.
guy with just like the patch of hair right here,
Yeah.
like telling
The
you, yeah,
I
that
I I like using it just because 'cause I'm, like, an organization freak, so, like, I love using it to, like, my best of the year lists and stuff like that,
sure,
um,
sure,
but I definitely do leave these, like, little reviews just because I'll leave my, like, YouTube review link in the bottom of it, so
sure.
if any joke I make does blow up, hopefully it just brings
Yeah, you
traffic
can
there, but, like,
yeah.
it's
It makes
definitely
sense.
I can't believe how popular it's gotten, like, I have so many friends that, like, aren't really into movies, and it's trickled down to them now, and
Yeah.
they're
Have
all
some
about
friends
it.
that have never heard of it, but, one of my good buddies is like a UX designer developer. I was kinda having him look into the new app, and he was like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, they need to work on a few things," but, I brought up Letterboxd, and he's like in the know internet guy,
and
like
he'd
he
never
knows
heard of
all
it.
the websites, all the apps, everything. He never even heard of Letterboxd, but he's
Wow.
not a big movie guy, so,
Yeah.
um,
Oh, wait, here we go. Luke, if you need a spokesperson, you know who to
that's
call, all right? You know where I live. Hit me up.
awesome.
All right, well, the Band-Aid had to be ripped off at some point. I could chop it up with you about this
You and
stuff
me
all
both,
day
brother.
long. I
You and me
know
both.
it's, it's too easy. That's the problem. It's already
Yeah,
been 2
I know we go
hours.
on our side tangent, so if anyone's still watching, I'm sorry if we got way off base, but
I mean,
I
it's
feel like we
still
covered
fun conversation.
yeah, and I feel like we covered a lot of what the show is,
We
I'm sure
did.
we missed some stuff, but
With the limited 8 episodes we had, I
yeah.
think we
Yeah,
covered
so
a lot.
so for everybody, what are your final thoughts? What would the Sully score be?
Well, I stopped doing decimals a while ago to just try and like keep it to like the 5-star rating. So like I don't really do halves as much anymore because I do think and I saw what you gave it too. I do think at the end of the day, I would give it something like an 8.5 out of 10. Because it's
Uh-huh.
like it's better than an 8.
Yeah.
I don't
Yep.
know if it's fantastic to the point where I would give it a 9 out of 10,
I couldn't quite give it a 9 either.
but it
Yeah,
deserves to be above what I would give an 8.
sure.
So for this one discussion, I will go back to decimals and I'll say an 8.5 out of 10 on that.
Okay, so you're still gonna keep the 5-star, but you're just gonna do, like, 3 stars instead
Well,
of 3.5.
even just for I don't even know if I'm gonna even put out a formal video on it, but
Okay.
just
Yeah,
8.5 out of 10. It's
love it.
just it should be more like it's like even if I did do a review and gave it a 4 out of 10, it's like a high. I mean, a 4 out of 5. It's a high 4 out of 5.
Yeah, yeah, and so this is what I was telling, one of my buddies is, to me, the sign of something if it's the sign of something being good nowadays is that I wanna watch it again, and I wanna watch Fallout again. Like, when I saw Dune 2, I was like, "I wanna go see that movie again," and I never see movies twice in the theater, and I saw that twice in the theater.
Yeah.
So, if you're able to put out something nowadays where I'm like, "Yeah, I gotta see that again," that's the sign to me that it's something good.
I think going off that tangent too, and obviously this only works for this specific area of movies and TV when it comes to like a video game adaptation. I think if something like this is done well and it makes you want to run home and re-download the game,
Yep.
then you know that this thing did its job.
It succeeded in that. I'm sure the game downloads are just
Oh,
insane from
off the
this last
charts
week.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gotta be like I'm sure like New Vegas 3 and 4 are all just like top sellers right now. I think, on Steam because I downloaded, 4 the other day, it was like $5. They're like hitting them with like massive discounts on these games right now. So,
I'm honestly shocked they didn't go the other way. Like it's so
right.
popular, it's like charge it 20 and
Yeah.
like it would still probably
Supply
get
and
bought and
demand,
showed up.
man. Supply
I
and
know.
demand.
I know.
But,
Um, all right. Well, I gotta cut it here.
okay.
Um, but we gotta keep doing the live stream business here.
Absolutely, dude. I know you got a lot going on. Always a pleasure speaking with you. So let's make this a
Once
more frequent occurrence.
we definitely will. Once I'm back from the wedding and the honeymoon and everything, I think like August, I'm done being the busy dude in the group. You
Yeah.
know, like
And that's
I'm
when I'm
like,
gonna get real busy.
I know
I'm
that's
get
when you get busy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm getting married in
we'll
September, so
we'll play it by ear.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, we'll play it by ear.
No worries, man. When are you taking the plunge, in June?
June 8th. Yeah.
June 8th, alright.
What about yourself?
September 28th. Just because
Nice.
I'm in Texas, so, like, if I got married June 8th, it'd be Satan's asshole right
I was gonna
now,
say you'd
so
be in shorts and like
oh,
shirtless.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, so for a while, I did a lot of, wedding videography out here,
Yeah.
and whenever I do it in the summer, it was just like I couldn't do it anymore because it's just, when you have an outdoor wedding and it's 105 with 90% humidity, you just wanna die.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't sound like a great situation.
no, no. So we were like, "Let's do it whenever that's usually when the weather starts getting pretty nice." So,
Yeah. Well, good luck with, I mean, I'm sure I'll talk to you way
of
before any of
course,
that happens,
of
but
course.
good luck with all that.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And we will get on the live stream again soon. So I'm going to cut
Yeah.
it here. But anyone else that's watching, let me know in the comments below what you thought of Fallout, what you think is going to happen in season 2. Um, and
What'd
yeah,
you
I guess
like? What'd you
maybe
not like? That's
your craziest prediction that you don't think might happen, but just give me what the
yeah.
wildest thing you think might happen in that season.
And I'm interested to hear because no one's mentioned it in any of my stuff is what people think of Maximus from the Brotherhood of Steel. I just haven't heard
Hmm.
it talked about a bunch, but to me, that was the
Yeah,
weakest link of the whole show.
weak
So,
link there.
yep.
I'll leave you on this parting note. Some people
Yeah.
said that they want him to be the recast of Kang the Conqueror,
Okay. Yeah.
which I think I'd be down to give him a shot to do that. I think that'd
I
be
thought they were
cool.
just abandoning that character altogether.
I
Or
think
they
they are. So I don't
yeah,
know what's happening, but
yeah.
you know,
Marvel's in a tricky situation right now.
just classic fan cast for any new person that shows up on the scene. But
Yeah. Okay,
all
man.
right, well, take it easy. We'll talk soon. And anyone
Absolutely.
watching, thanks for tuning in. And we'll talk later.
Thanks for watching. All right. Thanks,
See
man.
you, brother.
Sully, have a good one, brother.